YouTube. It says going live, but you don't know whether that means you're live. All right, it says we're live. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name's Stefan Livera. I'm known as a Bitcoin podcaster. I'm particularly known for bringing a specific Austrian economics angle to the way that I conduct the interviews. And
He just dropped out.
CEOs
No.
and
All right, hold on,
Austrian
hold on, hold
economists as
on. You
well.
dropped out for a second. We left off with you saying you bring a specific angle to your podcast, an Austrian angle, and then you dropped out.
Sure, yeah. So my podcast is mainly known for coming from a what I call a Bitcoin Austrian view. I essentially came from that point of view because I was into Austrian economics even before getting into Bitcoin. And so that's where I took some of my intellectual influence. And so for me, I would say, in a similar school of thought to people like Saif Dinamus, Pierre Rochard, Vijay Boyapati, Michael Goldstein. I'm from a similar,
Dude.
to some extent, I'm known as interviewing from that
Okay,
perspective,
cool.
but also conducting more of a technological interview style as well around specific technical components of Bitcoin.
Great. Well, let's have at it. Do you have anything you'd like to talk about in particular? Do you know who I am? Do you know of me? Should I introduce myself?
Yeah, no, I do know of you, Richard.
All right.
I think you're one of those guys who's like, obviously you're quite intelligent and you've got a good way of speaking and so on, but I guess I I do have a bit of a concern around this whole Bitcoin hex thing. You know,
Great.
yeah, I think it it just leads people the wrong way. It tells people, oh, hey, we can create this new money, and well,
This is going to be an
from my
awesome
perspective,
conversation. I can feel it. It's going to
yeah,
be awesome.
yeah, for sure. I'm
Right.
happy to discuss back and
Yes,
forth
I
with you.
didn't mean to interrupt.
Um,
Yes, we can create money out of thin air. Continue.
Yeah, so I just see it like, what is even the point of this?
Yeah.
Is it just kind of giving people the wrong idea of, oh, hey, we can try to create a coin that's intentionally meant to pump or whatever?
hmm
Um, s- so to
So let me.
me,
So I'll try something.
yeah, sure.
I'll try something different. Right. My audience has already seen me say the same things a lot, and so I'd like to let them hear me say new things. So I'm going to try and say new things with you, and we'll try this more of a Socratic questioning and interrogative type of interaction where I elicit your worldview and your values and beliefs, and then see if, in fact, mine kind of fits into yours, and we just didn't realize it, and that we actually have, synergy and such. So, why do you like Bitcoin?
Fundamentally, it represents a game changer technology. It
Mm-hmm.
represents the ability to create hard money, right? Money that's hard to create,
Mm-hmm.
that is outside the purview of any government or any company or any person, while at the same time being programmable and able, the ability to be sent anywhere. I think another key component that I really like about Bitcoin and why I view it like a very game changer level technology is that people can cheaply verify it. So you can run a Raspberry Pi full node, the parts for which will cost you maybe $200 or $300, and you can now verify the full supply,
Mm-hmm.
etc., etc., as I'm sure you're aware. And so to me, that it just represents a real change in the way that money could be created and operated. And I
Mm-hmm.
would contrast that with gold, right? So
Mm-hmm.
gold, for a long time, for thousands of years, was money. However, it got centralized, and that is how it got co-opted by the government. And that is how I would say gold got
So let,
demonetized.
so let me
Yeah,
jump
go on.
in because I want to. So I agree with almost everything that you've said. There's certain caveats that I would insert in there. I guess since you're a podcaster and used to going in depth, I will go in depth with you at this point. So I agree with you that a technology that can truly change the relationship of man and government is huge, huge, gigantic thing, and there really aren't that many of those technologies out there that you could participate in. And the fact that you could participate in it and get rich at the same time is just even better, right? Um, as far as verifying the whole supply and running a full node, in fact, running a full node is meaningless unless you trust who you downloaded it from. And so in reality, all blockchains are socially enforced networks. And you downloading a client that you think is a full node and you think is doing things better than a soft client or a thin client, that's only true if the person that gave it to you didn't malware it and just take all your keys, right? And so unless you're actually a developer reviewing the code textually, looking at the lines of text, compiling it yourself into your own executable, and then running it yourself, and then verifying that the nodes in the settings.conf, the settings in the settings.conf match what type of will you want to execute onto the network. Settings such as what type of blocks will you accept, what's your maximum block size, which other nodes will you communicate with, if you're a miner, which transactions you'll allow to transact. If you're not doing any of those things, in reality, as a person running a quote full node, you're just a slave to the default, and you're just a slave to whoever handed you those defaults. And so you must stay forever vigilant. You must either compile your own code and audit it yourself, or trust whoever did it for you, because double clicking an exe, it's not enough, right?
Sure. So my response on that, and I think there's some truth to what you're saying, certainly. But my response would be, we have a spectrum of technicality, let's say, or technical proficiency, right? So you've got people all on the other end of the spectrum who are straight up, they can read every line of code.
It's better.
You know what I mean?
Bitcoin's better. We know
Right.
how many coins they're printing. It's very likely you got a good source. It's easier to download a good source than a bad source. It is an improvement, right? But I want to speak very specifically because a lot of people say things that are fraudulent and inaccurate and disgusting about what I believe is a very good technology. And because people think that will pump the price, they let them get away with it. And I find it disgusting. So for instance, there's a celebrity in the space that will go on television and say, if you don't believe in Bitcoin, you don't believe in cryptography. And I find that disgusting because cryptography preceded Bitcoin, and Bitcoin stands on the back of cryptography and the back of open source databases, which it stores all of its data in. So Bitcoin is a database that stores all of its data in another database. And it was originally the Berkeley DB, and now it's the Level DB system. And without that system, there would be no Bitcoin, right? And we've borrowed the Qt GUI EXE, which is also an open source project. And we used OpenSSL to verify transactions for a long time until we had our own libsec 256p library. So I don't like the euphemisms, and I don't like the platitudes, and I like to speak very specifically about what blockchains are good at and what they're not good at. And that makes a lot of people angry in the maximalist and often Austrian communities because they want to live with blinders on. And it's weird because this is a group of people that prides themselves on seeing past the curtain, right? So who's the Wizard of Oz and who's really behind the curtain? And they think they found that guy. But in reality, they're just like creating another curtain, which is, there's only one way to do trustless communication, and it's Bitcoin. And there's only one way to transfer value, and it's Bitcoin. And there's only one way to get rich in crypto, and it's Bitcoin. And everything else is a nightmare and horrible and disgusting, and it's 100% factually incorrect.
So a couple things there. I would say so this comes back to what kind of maximalist are you, right? So there's the view of what I call monetary maximalism, and that's my friend Pierre Rochard who coined that term, but essentially it's around that idea of believing that it's saleability and liquidity that will inevitably drive people towards one best money, right? So that's the monetary maximalist view. Now, you might also contrast that with something like a platform maximalist view, this idea that, everything technologically must be built on Bitcoin, right? So my view would be more like monetary maximalism, not necessarily platform maximalism, right? So in that case, I wouldn't say, every messaging thing has to be built on Bitcoin. Well, no, I would say Bitcoin is the money and other things will get built up on top of that. So that's my view.
Hey, it's an okay view. I used to have that view too, right? And then I decided I wanted more. So let's keep finding agreement, and while we're finding agreement, getting that nuance, because I think there's a lot of content there, right? Like if you and I agreed on everything, Well, no one's learning everything. It's basically like a monologue with two people. So it's good that we find agreement and we find nuance, which is slight difference, right? So we both like peer-to-peer value transfer. We both like knowing what the actual supply of the currency is. We both like, knowing what the future total supply will be. We probably both like the inflation rate reducing over time, right? You like the inflation rate going down over time? Helps the price go
I
up.
think of that more like, no, I certainly don't want it to go up, right? I would just think of that more like it was more like a number got chosen, and because that's now the number, everyone just agrees on that, right? Like that Schelling point idea. It doesn't matter that much about like what was the specific rate and how is it decreasing and so on. It was more just like this number came out, everyone agreed on it, and that's what we can agree on.
It
without
wasn't
having to,
even declared in the white paper. It wasn't even in the white paper. The halving every 4 years was not even in the white paper. Nor was the 1 megawatt block limit.
Yeah, so I don't doubt that. I think, as Nick Szabo would talk, he would about your political argument surface, right? In the same way you might think of it like a Texas, you can have a political.
You're gonna have to restate the legal attack surface again, because you chopped a bit the connection.
He was speaking about this idea of how, similar to how we think of from a computer security point of view, about attack surface, and you want to minimize that attack surface, right? Just generally speaking, from a security point of view.
Yeah.
But then Nick Szabo was basically making an analogy, and he was saying, actually, you can think of this like political argument surface. We're minimizing the number of things that people could just kick up a stink about, and that's why this 21 million. And okay, the actual correct number is actually just a little bit less than that because of this, that, and the other. But broadly, 21 million.
Yep. I mean, I can tell you some coins that were permanently lost due to like a hard fork rollback back when 6 billion Bitcoin got printed. The transaction that printed those lost its reward of 50 BTC. So the actual supply is at least 50 BTC lower forever because of that.
And the one example where a miner only took less than the full amount that they were entitled to take. And there was another example where I think a miner screwed up the calculation. Yeah, I mean, there's little examples like this. So the actual number is
they're
like,
less than rounding
whatever,
errors.
21 million,
it's almost irrelevant.
9,000, whatever, 8. Just done. But I mean, essentially, the point is, it's 21 million, and that's what most people have agreed on. That's what people have opted into. That's what matters in the end.
Right. Well, so here's the thing. Because blockchains are socially enforced networks. So let me give you an example of what I mean by being socially enforced. Bitcoin Cash has a longer blockchain than Bitcoin does. Why? Because they used an emergency difficulty retarget, which allowed the miners to game it, which allowed them to get more block rewards by showing that it needed to be down targeted down, and then mining a lot when the retarget down occurred. And so there's extra inflation in that system and a higher block height, even though they both forked from the same block. Now, in Bitcoin, it is stated that the authoritative, accurate, valid chain is the longest chain. Well, there's a new longest chain. And so then people had to go, oh, I guess we had it wrong. What we want is not actually the longest chain, but we want is the heaviest chain. And that means length times energy that went into to create it, hash rate times length, and then it lands you back on the main chain again, right? Now, who do you socially believe in order to enforce that? You have to believe a developer that tells you, actually, this is the rule we're using now, and you have to look outside of the software and outside of the system to measure other weights of other chains to see if, in fact, those are the authoritative chains, right? And the same...
So my view is it's more like it's, as has been explained by other people like Nassim Taylor, this idea of Schelling point, right? If you had to meet somebody in New York, you didn't know the time and the place, and in the book he talks about he says 12 noon at Central, right? And so the point is, where do people go? And I totally accept your point that there is a bit of a social layer of consensus.
Well, Schelling points are only easy when they're not. A Schelling point is only easy to arrive at when there's not a wide range of conscious reasonable choices. So if instead of Central Station being the most popular station, the division of popular stations were threefold, and there was, Central Stations A, B, and C, and they were in different locations, then you would arrive at like a 1/3 each person would decide that Schelling point, right? So that Schelling points are only effective when the tiebreakers are rather obviously broken. But in a Bitcoin's case, when you go to bitcoin.com and they're telling you the real Bitcoin is something else, and they're telling you that that's the real intention of the white paper, and they own the .com domain name, for a noob that doesn't know any better, I mean, that would sound pretty compelling, right? And then who are you going to go to for your Schelling point? It's social consensus again, and I'll just finish this point.
Yeah, you finish.
Well, you know what? You finish that point, because this thing is like an almost different point. So go ahead.
Sure. So the way I would think about that is, think of it more from an economic point of view.
Mm-hmm.
There are strong opportunity costs holding one money over another money, right? It's easy
Can I
to
ask
have
you?
Facebook
I
and
know
a
this
Twitter
is.
account.
I know this is a stupid question, but your internet connection kind of sucks. Is there any way to make your internet connection better?
I'm running VPN. I could turn it off.
You should turn that off, because the connection is unbearable. You just keep dropping out.
All right.
And your video is choppy, is like super choppy. Like the video is a joke. Like you just paused, basically.
One sec.
All right.
Okay.
Wow, it looks a lot better now.
How's it now? It's good?
It's a miracle better. Thank God.
Okay,
Yes.
no worries.
I'm glad I asked.
All right, so
it was quite bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, so going back to that point, so the opportunity cost, the very strong opportunity cost of holding one money over another, and part of
But
that
in the case
is
of a fork, you got both for free. There's no opportunity cost at the fork instant.
But you could then, but you might then speculate then on, and now again, you could be quote unquote neutral and not redeem the fork and just not take a position and just let the market decide.
I believe neutral is a position, and as a trader, I wrote a guide for everyone to sell their BCH at 0.16, and now it's at like 0.3 or something. So enjoy all that money, guys, that I hooked you up with for showing you how to dump your bags, right? I believe that neutral is a position. I'm just saying. So I don't want to go too deep into this. So what my important goal here is to show you that the stuff that you believe in is cool, and I believe in it too, and I've found better ways to do all of it. So if you want people to be able to transmit value in a peer-to-peer way, then doing that with censorship resistance is better. And I will tell you that you have more censorship resistance in the Ethereum network than you have in the Bitcoin network. And I will justify it with facts that you can go check, right? If you don't like paying a bunch of fees to a bunch of people that just pollute the environment with the energy, well, you can pay fees to people that pollute the environment less and give you better security on the Ethereum network than you can do it on the Bitcoin network. If you want to use a stable coin, which is the majority of crypto usage, not the majority, but the most popular crypto for transactions is Tether. If you use Bitcoin, you don't have decentralized finance. You don't have a peer-to-peer stablecoin. But in Ethereum, you do. You have a peer-to-peer stablecoin. And so instead of having a bank that you insert an extra counterparty into in between you and the bank so that you can't even sue the bank, and if the bank screws them, they'll screw you, right? And you don't get any interest on the account. That's what a stablecoin is. So if you're in the Bitcoin ecosystem, you were locked into something which is worse, which is a non-peer-to-peer, extra counterparty stablecoin, whereas in the Ethereum ecosystem, you're not, right? If you want privacy, you've got a ZK Snark system already rolled out on Ethereum called Zephyr. However, it takes too much gas, so you can't use it right now. You've got optimistic rollups, which can do 100x the throughput on chain. If you want to talk about those, talk to Eric Wall. I'm out of the loop on a lot of the new cool ZK Snark and ETH2 stuff. They've got a more aggressive roadmap. They've got lower transaction fees. There's two coins that tried to build on top of Bitcoin. Counterparty XCP that burnt 2,000 Bitcoin to launch, and Omni Protocol. And Tether used to run on the Omni Protocol on top of Bitcoin. And they left it and moved the majority of their trades over to ERC20 and Ethereum because it works better. So the coin that actually does more volume, than any other cryptocurrency, left Bitcoin goodbye, bye-bye, and went to Ethereum because it's better, right? Like, you like atomic cross swaps? All the ERC20s can atomic cross swap against all the other ones with no order book, no counterparty risk, trustless. What can you atomic cross swap with Bitcoin? Basically jack shit, right? So you're forced to use a worse stable coin. You're forced to use shittier counterparties because there's no atomic cross swaps, because you live in this little fucking bubble, you won't interact or communicate with anything else. And finance is more than currency, right? Finance is more than currency. The project I built addresses time deposits. Time deposits are worth 7.2 trillion in the United States and China. That's more than printed currency, which is what Bitcoin is designed to replace. So I'm addressing a larger market cap that serves more users with lower fees and better security. Bitcoin's had 2 inflation bugs. Ethereum's had 0 inflation bugs, right? Bitcoin rolled back the chain once, Ethereum rolled back the chain once. Ethereum rolled back the chain to screw over a hacker. Bitcoin rolled back the chain just because the code failed. And the code is likely to continue to run into inflation bugs because it's spaghetti code with no modularity. In Hex, the consensus network code is locked into a smart contract that no one can edit, and therefore it's nearly impossible to accidentally screw up the consensus code. But it's very easy to do in Bitcoin because an improvement to the networking stack to reduce latency caused an inflation bug, which let anyone print as much money as they found. And since Bitcoin doesn't even have a bug bounty program, which Ethereum does, that bug was found by a Bitcoin Cash developer who disclosed it honorably. He could have used it. If you found that bug, would you just print some free Bitcoin, or would you tell the world about it? Right?
And then, okay, so look, there's a lot of different points we're gonna hit there. So, okay, so
I could go all day. Like I used to be a maximalist, and I'm not now, and I know how to play both sides of the coin, and I'm on the right side.
Okay, so look, let me give a high level comment about this, right? So first of all, I would suggest we have to think of this firstly as a money, not as a technology, right? It's most important to think of it as a money first. The other stuff is,
but they don't.
That's
what?
kind of.
I disagree with that because it's not used as a money anywhere. There's only 800 people that even accept it on the internet. 800, unless that website is terribly bad at finding them. Nothing is priced in it. It's priced in USD. There's only 2.8 million wallets that have over $1,000 on them. I mean, it is sure as fuck not used as a money. It's used as a speculative instrument. They don't even use it on the dark. Well, I mean, they use it on the darknet, but that's only like 5% of total volume.
I think from the articles I've seen in the darknet markets, they are still using Bitcoin.
Yes,
as
primarily,
currency.
but that's 5% of the market cap.
There, and look, I think the broader point is this is not something that I think people come out and expect Bitcoin to kind of be born and just ready to go straight away.
For 10 years, 10 years. Do you know how long it took WhatsApp to take over the world? 2 years. You know how long it took Fortnite to take over the world? 1 year. 10 years in technology is eternity, truthfully.
I think that's actually very short. We've
not.
been using, government money for how many years? Many decades.
How many? Okay, so let's list some companies like Airbnb or WhatsApp or Fortnite or Clash of Clans. All of these companies have hundreds of millions of users in a shorter time frame than Bitcoin got to 3 million users.
It's probably a bit more than 3 million, but
it's not. Okay, it's not. I can show you on chain. Look, there's only 2.8 million wallets that have over $1,000 on them, and most people have more than one address. Not wallets. 2.8 million addresses, and most people have more than one address. So there's probably only like 1.5 or 2 million actual entities that even hold more than $1,000 of Bitcoin. Furthermore, 40% of Bitcoin is held in addresses that hold over 1,000 coins. I don't think you're one of those guys, which means that the vast majority of this thing you love so much is owned by an economic class of people of which you are not a member and are unlikely to ever be. And so it's funny when I see guys talk about disrupting the banks and changing the world and helping onboard the poor people when the banks own more coins than you, right? Tim Draper bought the Silk Road coins. He's got over 100K coins. The Winklevi have over 100K coins. Plus Token Ponzi has over 100K coins. The Mt. Gox trustee has over 140K coins. And how many do you have? And so you think you're participating in this world-changing, amazing ecosystem that's going to bring power to the little guy. But in reality, the little guys are just pumping the bags of the fucking banks. Oh, and by the way, my currency fixes that because we penalize those wheels 75%.
Ultimately, it comes down to money is neutral. And so, yes, there will be
No, it's not. No, it's not. What are you talking about money's neutral? What?
As in, I mean, in the sense that it's a neutral tool, right? In the same way that you can use a knife to cut food, or you can like sort of go to a
I mean, look,
tool.
that's a cool story, but like, it's just not the case. I mean, let's talk about how neutral Bitcoin is, okay? Can your grandmother use it? Fuck no. All right, so it's ageist off the bat, right? And how many girls are in crypto? Fucking none, right? I know. I look at my demographics; it's 1 or 2%. So this concept that like money is like neutral, maybe, but Bitcoin ain't fucking neutral. I could tell you that for sure. Like it is,
I think
it is not
yeah,
neutral
I
at
think
all.
in mischaracterization, mind you, like I think it's again it's a long term process. I think we do this more like a multi-decade process, and
Did you turn your
same way
VPN
that
back on?
not
Because
everyone
you're
wrote
chopping.
an email server back in the early days, right? It's like it takes time, and especially with Bitcoin, people have to learn a bit more about how to run your own node and how to do these aspects around key management and so on. These are becoming easier over time.
So I'm gonna
But
repeat what you said so that the people can understand it because it's chopping so bad. I believe what Stefan said was that he believes this is a multi-decade process, and people need to learn how to do the hard things like download and run their own node, right? This,
and these are
hey,
getting easier
people
over
are saying to
time.
turn your video off and just go audio only. That's a good idea. Can you try that?
Okay, sure.
All right.
Yep. Okay. What's that?
I think it's better.
It's up to you. Look, I would say that there's a lot there around the monetary component, but it's going to take time. This is not the sort of thing that can just happen overnight. And the way you're painting it is sort of like, oh, it should have been formed, and like, oh, grandma should be able to use Bitcoin. Yeah,
Okay. Let me
years in or whatever.
let me respond to this. First of all, lots of other coins that are not Bitcoin are having no problem onboarding millions and millions of users. Unfortunately, those coins are Ponzi schemes and scams. One coin onboarded millions of users. BitConnect onboarded millions of users. The Plus token Ponzi made the 3K bottom and made the 14K top when their founders were arrested. So even our price chart in Bitcoin is the slave to the Ponzi schemes who actually have the margin and the marketing to advertise into the real world and onboard people, something that Bitcoin does not have and is not going to have ever. Because with the awesome censorship resistance, unfortunately, came economic spread, economic censorship resistance. There's no one has a big enough bag that can make enough profit onboarding a new user to pay the $200 it might cost to bring them on. Or maybe you could do it for really cheap. You could do it for 20, right? You pay 25 cents a click. It costs you, let's say, 100 clicks to get somebody. Okay, well now that just cost you, $25, right? And now can you get them to buy Bitcoin? And how much Bitcoin do they have to buy in order to drive the price up far enough for you to make your $25 back? It's too far spread out, which is the reason you can make a Bitcoin.com that sells a fake Bitcoin and never get sued. But if you try that with XRP, you'll get this crap suit out of you because they have enough economic centralization to defend their corporate interests, right? And they have marketing budgets and they can do partnerships with other people and put out advertisements, things that Bitcoin can't do. And these are all things that I'm solving with my project, which I'm giving for free to Bitcoin holders. I'm penalizing whales 75%. I'm making it so that Mt. Gox can't claim. I'm putting a referral program in there that pays 20% so that anyone else that has an audience in the space can onboard users into something better for free, and they can all get paid and have margin, right? And I've got audits, which Bitcoin doesn't have any audits. I've got two contract audits and one economics audit. Bitcoin has none of these things. No audits, no bug bounty program, right? Like, you still there?
Yep.
You,
So
okay,
I wanted to just let you finish off.
sure.
But my view is that again, it's people don't want to. I call this the die on a hill factor, right? Nobody is going to go die on a hill to make Brad Garlinghouse and the Ripple guys rich, right?
They did.
Bitcoin is
He was
different
the
in
richest
that,
guy in the world in 2017. What are you talking about?
well, at one point, yeah. But I'm saying
Yeah. Well,
people
how
aren't
much
going to
was
go
that? Not
like,
enough? Like, is that what should he have aimed higher? Intergalactic richest guy? Like,
did
come
he stay
on.
rich?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's still richer than both of us. Yeah. And I'm
Well,
pretty
okay,
sure
well, he's
that what
richer
he
than both of
built
us.
transfers more volume than anything that either of us has built yet, right? So here's the thing about shit talking other coins. Do you know anyone that lost money transacting on Dogecoin due to a 51% attack? No, you don't.
No,
They're
but
just a
my
fork of
view is
Bitcoin.
that, right, but I think with that, it's some of these. It's like swimming. It's like that saying, you only know who's swimming naked when the tide goes out, right? Like some of these
Yeah, but this
coins
is coming from a
are.
guy whose favorite currency just dropped 85% again. Again. Your coin dropped 85% and Dogecoin dropped 95%. So don't appeal to some blue chip extra badass status. You don't have one. You had to roll back your chain. You've had 2 inflation bugs. You're not getting security. You're not. You don't even have bug bounty program. You're not going to get an anonymity upgrade. It's not going to happen. You had to lie, cheat, and steal to get SegWit 2x by promising 2 megabyte blocks to get SegWit and then screwing them over and not giving them the 2 megabyte blocks. Do you think they'll fall for that again? Do you think
I
that
think you're
Coinbase is going to
anthropomizing a
allow
lot
an
here.
anonymity fork in?
I think you're anthropomizing a lot here, though, because it's not that Bitcoin
I'm not even.
went and said, "Oh yeah, we'll do 2x and SegWit." There were a lot of people who were just like, "No, I want SegWit only. I never agreed to 2x. That was never part of the deal." And so again, this is
Bro,
one of those things
come
where I
on.
guess
So
looking
do you
back,
think? Do
people.
you think you're going to get? Okay, so what privacy technology do you think you're going to get in Bitcoin, and when do you think you're going to get it?
So on this point, I think Lightning Network will actually provide a fair amount of privacy. It won't be perfect, but I think it'll be quote unquote good enough, right? So I
Right.
think
So how do you,
likely, if I had to speculate, what I believe will come, I think it'll be, at least with the knowledge I have today, I believe we will see Lightning Network used for small transactions and perhaps coin joined post mixed Bitcoin transactions for larger transactions that are above that sort of
right? So
amount
so
that's
the
cost
answer the
effective to
answer that
spend in
you've given
Lightning.
is we are not going to get anonymity in Bitcoin. Is the answer you just gave? You gave a whole lot of words for other networks that aren't Bitcoin, right? Like the Lightning Network, it is not Bitcoin. It is not the same repo. It does not have the same developers. It does not use the same port. It does not use the same code. There's no fucking relation, which is why the Lightning Network has had critical vulnerabilities recently that have lost people money in the last 2 months, but Bitcoin hasn't. Okay? And if Lightning does work, do you know what other coins it'll work for? All of them, because it's just a bunch of exchanging of time locked signatures. And that shit works for everybody. So when it works for Bitcoin, it'll also work with Raiden on Ethereum and with state channels and with all these other technologies that are out there. So it's not even a competitive advantage, right? And how late is that project? And when will it actually come out? The point is, we shouldn't even be talking about whether Lightning is good or not because it doesn't have fuck all to do with Bitcoin. It really doesn't, right? Like no one's getting like it. It is an unrelated technology that has absolutely nothing in common whatsoever, other than fans of Bitcoin tend to be fans of it, and that is all.
But the Lightning Network right now is actually much bigger on Bitcoin than it is on any other coin right now. That's
Yeah,
true to
but
say.
but it's all
Also,
but it's actually not. Like there's $4 million of Bitcoin wrapped on the Ethereum network with BitGo as a counterparty with WBTC, and there's $6 million in the Lightning network. Both of those numbers are pitifully fucking small. But the fact that Ethereum even had a larger amount than the Lightning Network at one point, and I would almost guarantee that as time passes, there will be more Bitcoin on Ethereum than there is on actual Bitcoin, because there's so much DeFi going in there, because it allows anyone to build trustless financial instruments that Bitcoin can't. Oh, remember when I told you about Counterparty and Omni? Totally failed. Totally. Go look at their price chart. Pure death for 5 years. Why? Because building on Bitcoin sucks balls, which is now no one fucking does it because they tried and they failed 100%. Their products worked fine. You wanted to wrap
maybe
transactions
they
and
were
run them
ahead
on
of their
Bitcoin, you
time,
could have.
and maybe they were ahead of their time, and also maybe the usages got priced down by other things rather than those tokens specifically.
Dude,
So it's
Omni, the
to me,
majority of trading volume in crypto is Tether, and they switched from Omni on Bitcoin to ERC20 on Ethereum. You can't get any more clear than that. That's not theory. That's real world people voting with their real world money, and that's over 50%. It's over 33% of transactions on Ethereum are those Tether transactions. So like,
look, I think a lot of this stuff is ultimately, I would say that's kind of, you're kind of pointing to all these sort of peripheral things when,
how
as
is
I've been
how is
saying,
how
what's
is
most
Tether doing
important.
more transaction volume than Bitcoin? Peripheral. It's getting its shit kicked in. Bitcoin is getting curb stomped. It's getting fucked up. It's getting annihilated. It dropped 85% and is not doing as much transaction volume as other coins. And his fucking bugs appearing. Like, at what point do you realize that you can do better? It's getting fucked up, mate. The only person that goes publicly and defends it is me. I'm the one that goes on television to defend Bitcoin. because I do a good fucking job of it and I don't bullshit about it, right? I'm one of the top 3 or 4 speakers in the world to promote Bitcoin and say nice things about it. How fucking pitiful is that? Right? Like, bro, like where's the actual good shit
I'm not
going
sure I
on?
would agree with that. I mean, there
Okay,
have
so name the
been,
top
like,
4.
many
Name the top 4. Name the top 4. Andreas.
top 4. Well,
Trace
obviously
Meyer.
Andreas, he would be up
Yep.
there.
Yep.
I
Andreas,
would
Trace
say
Meyer.
someone like Trace will
Yep.
be up there. Who else? Someone like Safety, he'd be up there.
Dude, he alienates hard as fuck anyone in the world that hears him. He's not a good representative for the brand. People hate him more than they like him. Andreas is a better representative for the brand because he doesn't create enemies as a hobby. He doesn't go out of his way to make enemies.
Look, ultimately, I think it's.
But notice
people
that we're
use
running out of
it-
people, right? So like that was 3. Okay, so I would put me in the top 4 there. Who would displace me?
quite.
Okay, who would displace me?
Well, as in who? When you're
yeah,
saying
who
top
better
3
sells
or 4,
Bitcoin to the
are
public?
you saying who's a better salesman of it, or who has
Who does a
been
better
prominent
job
in the media?
representing? Who does a better job representing Bitcoin in the public eye? I've been on television representing it multiple times. So, like,
Hey, I
who's doing a
think
better job?
Melton
Pomp?
Muir did a good job recently.
Yeah, she's done good. Okay. Yep. I'd say she's done very well. Yep.
Yep.
I would be
who
top 5
else?
at that.
Elise Colleen, if you've seen her,
Never heard of her.
she did a fantastic job.
I haven't heard of her.
Who else?
I think the CoinDesk guys do pretty well, but you don't see them very much.
Yes, I don't know too much about them in particular.
So
but look, I
I'm up there in the
I wanna
top
just
single
correct-
digits, man. You run out of speakers pretty quick.
Look, I don't know. I don't know. I wouldn't be as sure. But I think let me just talk to a couple of points that I
Go
think.
ahead.
Yeah,
I want you to, because
Let
I'm
me
going to
talk to a
rape
couple
all your points. I'm going to rape them all. That is going to be awesome. I cannot wait to violate your points. Please, go ahead.
Sure. Look, ultimately, I think one way to think of it is like Taj Draja, right? He's one of the authors of the Lightning Network, and he explains it like Bitcoin is the money of enemies, right? So ultimately, it doesn't matter about whether Safety is a nice and fluffy, likable guy.
Yeah,
It
that's
matters
not true.
what money is.
That's not true. That's not true, because you require consensus to upgrade the fucking network. And the same consensus that you use to upgrade the network is the same exact consensus you can use to downgrade the network. So just like they double click the new EXE that cuts their coin issuance in half in about 7 months or 8 months, right? They allow that to happen. They could also just double their issuance instead, right? So like these are socially enforced networks, and having enemies and such just locks the code so that you can't improve anything anymore.
Some would say that's a good thing. And the other thing is also you have to consider the incentive of people who already hold the coin. And also, if you wanted to change Bitcoin, you would need an overwhelming majority. So you wouldn't be able to just like instantly double the supply like that, right? Because most of the already existing holders would not go with that. They would not run that software, and then therefore Bitcoin would not change.
Right. So let's talk about that, okay? If you think that users are as powerful as miners and exchanges, you're 100% wrong. There is a power hierarchy, okay? And when the UASP No 2X movement, which I was a member of and promoted, put the gun to the head of Bitcoin and said, we're not going to allow 2 megabyte blocks, so don't even try it, right? We're not going to signal for them. So everyone started their little nodes that didn't mind crap and then just selected the signal that they wouldn't promote SegWit 2X, right? What that really meant was, if you miners try and push SegWit 2X and push 2 megabyte blocks on us, we will Sybil attack the network and make it appear as though real Bitcoin is this other network. Now, let me tell you what would happen if that really occurred. The fork that didn't want the 2 megabyte blocks, that didn't mine their own blocks, would be 51% and reorged at will by the miners that have nearly infinite more hash rate than them, which means that the miners would have a properly functioning network that worked by the rules that they chose and wasn't able to roll back. And then you'd have the fake, angry, no 2X UASP guys that wear cool looking hats, right? And I was in that team, okay? I supported that, right? They would have a network that was fucking useless and absolutely nothing could be done on it and could be attacked at will by anyone that chose to do so, period, right? So this concept that all users get to have an equal say in the network is 100% false, 100%.
I wouldn't say all users have an equal say. I would say large holders have an proportionate say, right? So if you're a larger holder and if you're receiving more Bitcoin, then it's in your ability to, it's in your rejection
holding and receiving
of
are different
Bitcoin.
statements. Those are opposites. So you have to choose which one you mean. Are you talking about people that have income? Are you talking about businesses in the space? Are you talking about people that bought a bag a long time ago and have a large amount of energy stored in stake days or days destroyed, right? So like the amount of days that you haven't used your coin. It sucks that when we talk about days destroyed, what we really mean is days not destroyed. So I'm just going to do that now. I'm going to fix that language now. Coin days not destroyed, right? So people that have built up that economic energy, I don't think they have any say at all. I think if Satoshi's dead and he's got 1 million coins, which he does, and he's never moved them, he doesn't have any fucking say whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I think the economic system would work better if his coins were removed and people could have better economic certainty about their future so that we know his kids aren't fucking evil and just dump on us and nuke the price to zero because they want to buy a boat, a 400-yard long boat, right? How is that better for
So
the
my
world?
suggestion on that would be again opening up that whole political attack vector, because then someone would say, "Hey, they took his coins. Why couldn't they take
Yeah, but
someone else's
we
coins?"
already have
Now,
that.
what have you done?
We
You've
already
furthered
have
that
that.
whole fear again of not having certainty over the coins that you
We
hold.
already have that because the State Department ruled that you had to ban the China fentanyl gang guy and the Iranian malware guy's addresses. So I think you'll find that if you happen to be the unlucky private key holder to those addresses, you're going to have a very hard time getting anyone to interact with them because people tend to not want to violate the State Department's rulings.
Right. But even in those examples, I think and this is probably again a case of the government being naive or not understanding it well, but they basically they blasted certain addresses where someone could just move them, right? They could
Sure.
just move them out of those addresses or just
Yep.
run them through CoinJoin or take it into another address, and it's
Maybe
not
they
really
did the
stopping
best they
much of
could.
anything, right?
Yes, I agree. Maybe they did the best they could. You know, they put up laws about speeding and everyone still speeds. But it puts a chilling effect on speeding so that some people don't. And it puts a chilling effect on people that want to do dirty crap with the coins, and so some people won't. So yes, I agree, it is not the most effective thing they can do. So here's the funny part, right? I want most of the things that you want, and I found a better way to get them, but then I spend my time shit-talking something that I like. I like Bitcoin, right? Like the biggest bag I own is a bag of Bitcoin, okay? I want the price to go sky fucking high, but I'm not willing to say incorrect things about it, and I'm not willing to not make progress because some type of tribal blinders or silliness or anything, right? I'm telling you there's networks which transact value in a safer way with lower fees and better features that are onboarding more users. You should be excited about that. But you find it hard to be excited about that because you swallowed the tribalism pill, and now being a Bitcoiner is part of your identity. And if I go on your YouTube channel, it says Austrian economics guy, right? I can tell you there's a lot of advantages to Keynesian economics. But it's going to be hard to explain those to you because you've labeled yourself already as an Austrian guy. And so you've got to carry the flag, right? So if you get an XRP tattoo and I try and tell you, hey, you know, XRP is not really doing anything with banks, probably going to be hard for me to win that conversation, right? I mean, look at this.
Right,
I've given you 10 or 20. I've given you 10 or 20 points. I've given you 10 or 20 really cogent points that you're just not able to combat, but they're not having any effect on your psychology. They just roll off you. So I tell you, you can get everything that you want, better, faster, cheaper, more secure, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to pretend you didn't say that shit, and I'm just going to keep loving what I love. Right? That's cognitive dissonance on your part.
Because I think ultimately, it's like a cat saying, "Oh, look, this thing's cheaper, this thing's more secure," but maybe I disagree that it is cheaper.
So
that it is more
that's
secure,
important. Yes,
that it
that's
is more
really
long-term
important. Why don't
thing.
we go into that? Because if we disagree on the facts, like if we agree on the facts and then we disagree on the outcomes, then we can talk about logical process. But if we disagree on the facts themselves, you really shouldn't go any farther because you're just wasting your time, right? Like you can't build a good house foundation on sand. You need bedrock, right? So let's go to those things. Let's go to one by one those things, okay? Do you think Bitcoin transactions are more secure than Ethereum's? And if so, why?
Yes. So I think the best example is if you go to that site, howmanyconfs.com. It's a good site. It shows essentially the equivalent amount of let me pull that up now.
I already know what you're talking about, and I can explain it to the audience. Certain networks have more hash rate than other networks, and therefore, in order to have a reasonable amount of security that your transaction won't be rolled back, the shittier and lower the hash rate, the longer and longer you have to wait to feel certain that your money's not going to be taken away from you. So more confirmations. So when you go on exchange, the shittier, lower hash rate the coin, the more and more confirmations you have to wait. right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So what that in effect really means is that we're measuring hash rate, right? That's all we're doing. We're measuring hash rate.
Bit of a tough question though, because even there are different proof of work algorithms, right? So obviously SHA-256 versus
I'm
the
telling you
ETH1.
that I'm telling you that website can only perform calculations on hash rate because there's nothing else they could measure. They've got price,
Right. No,
and they've got
I
hash
don't
rate,
deny
and
that.
that's it. Okay. So now your position that I've algebraically turned into like a single unit, right? I've like removed all the extra parts and made its core basis is hash rate matters. That's your position, okay? If I increase the Bitcoin hash rate by tenfold with my mining hardware, I've increased the Bitcoin security by tenfold?
Oh, that's not a okay. I think it's one of the
It turns out that if I increase the hash rate by tenfold, I fuck the network, and it's really just my network now. And so it turns out that hash rate doesn't actually mean jack shit unless you're getting attacked, right? So what you really care about, if you care about censorship resistance, is the honesty of the parties that have the hash rate, their ability to resist corruption, and their unlikeliness to collude with each other is what you really care about and was really the only thing that matters. And so people that find that hard to measure, which is everyone, because it is hard to measure, fall back on something that doesn't actually matter, which is the raw hash rate. Unless you're a minority coin, right? If you're a hegemony coin that already controls the vast majority of the hash rate, you could double or cut your hash rate in half, and it really doesn't make a fucking difference. Bcash had an equivalent amount of hash rate to Bitcoin, and it didn't really matter to either party, right?
because again, it comes back to which one do people think is really the money? Which one do people think
We already
is
know that.
actually more likely?
We already know that because we have market cap tables, we have charts, we have order volume, we have transaction volume. If I were an alien and I came to this planet and I said, hey, what's the most popular cryptocurrency? The answer would be Tether because it trades the most volume, period. It doesn't meet your worldview. And to tell you the truth, it doesn't meet my worldview either. I fucking hate it. But that's the reality.
Okay, so the difference, I think, again, so you're conflating here a bit here because you're saying, oh yeah, Tether's the cryptocurrency, everyone can just use Tether, blah blah blah. Why?
No,
why use
I
Bitcoin?
dislike Tether greatly. I greatly dislike it. Greatly. It is a huge counterpart. It is the opposite of what crypto was invented for. Crypto was invented to remove counterparties. So what do? Most popular crypto adds a counterparty. Okay, well that's not what I want. That's not what I want for my crypto.
But again,
it's what the market wants.
Okay, so let me touch on this point. So I would say the way to think of that is Bitcoin has okay, I would say don't confuse payments with money. Bitcoin is trying to be money. So it's like think of it like
you guys have a minority of the market cap as well. I don't know why you bring up points that are bad for you. Like thank you for bringing up that your market cap also sucks.
Well, not quite. I think it's more like it needs a combo of these things, and that's why you can't just kind of nail down on exactly one thing. Like, okay, it's not just hash rate. Which one has the most hash rate? It's not just that, because it's ultimately about which one has the known, monetary policy in advance, and at the same time has resistance. Like we were saying, the censorship resistance part. Whereas something like if you're just using Tether, you're not going to save in Tether, or not realistically, because it's not the same thing. You might as well just save in US dollars at that point. Whereas
they really
with Bitcoin,
do.
There is a real difference. And yes, it is speculative demand. I would agree with that. But the point around the speculative demand, I think of it more like this is speculation on further adoption, and we can anticipate based on the characteristics of Bitcoin that we may see further adoption. So that's how I would characterize that.
So here's where we're at. I tell you other coins are onboarding new users. I tell you other coins are doing more transactions. I tell you other coins are safer. I tell you other coins have more utility and can plug into DeFi and have peer-to-peer stable coins, which you guys don't. I show you that people trying to build on your ecosystem have failed. I show that you have already had to roll back your own chain. I show that you are likely to have more problems in the future due to spaghetti code and due to having no bug bounty program. But for some reason, magically, even though I've curb stomped every single feature that you've possibly had, now I'll just mention the fact that you haven't had a feature increase in the last 2 years. The last good thing that you got was SegWit, and all it was a 25% throughput increase with some transaction malleability fixes, which truthfully shouldn't have been there in the first place, right? So I've shown you every single thing that you love about your coin is getting beat by Ethereum, pretty much. and things running on
Not
Ethereum.
quite, not quite. So
Okay,
hold
well, I'm
on, no,
listening.
I wouldn't
I'm
agree with
listening.
that. So yeah, well, if you let me finish, hold on. So first off, with the one way to think of it is buy support,
Hold on,
right?
hold
Like
on.
if
Can
you
I
look
just
on
mention I don't
the
own any
site,
Ethereum. I own like $100 of Ethereum. I own a shitload of Bitcoin.
right?
I have like $100 of Ethereum.
That's
Just so that
great.
you know, I'm
Let me
not
let me
like
finish now.
pumping my
All right,
bags.
let me
Go.
finish now.
Yep.
All right, let me finish now because you keep jumping in.
Yeah,
So
you can
just let
take
me
an hour to
finish.
do it. Like I'm truly not trying to cut you off. Take as much time as you like.
All right, great. So with one thing to think about this is again bringing it back to which one is more likely to be the money, which one has the liquidity, which one has the saleability. It is around, if you look on coinmarketbook.com, for example, it's got this thing called buy support, and that's saying sum of buy orders at 10% distance from highest bid price, right? And so you can see that
That
they
site
rate
doesn't
it
work
based
anymore,
on
bro.
buy support.
Like, I tried to send people
Sorry,
to that site, but it doesn't exist anymore. Like it hasn't existed for like a few months now. Let me make sure I typed it right.
I'm on there right now, coinmarketbook.cc.
Okay. .cc, bro. Fuck, come on. Like I knew to type .cc at the end of the fucking URL. Like you got to include that. Nobody knows to type .cc. Okay, I'll go to the site.
I said coinmarket.cc. Anyway,
Oh, I
so
didn't hear it.
look, the other point I would suggest is it's not really right to say, oh yeah,
It
more
doesn't work
users and
either.
other people can more easily build on top
Oh.
of their coins, and oh look at all the people who failed to build on top of Bitcoin. But look at fundamentally, more people are buying Bitcoin, and Bitcoin actually has more liquidity than any other crypto,
Yeah, I
right?
agree with that.
Even Tether on that, if you look at the measure on that site. Now, the other point around transactions, I would suggest again, Bitcoin right now is more about hodling, right? So if you think of it more from a Trace Mayer point of view, 7 network effects, the most important network effect of all is the speculation, the hodler network effect. Bitcoin dominates that. And Bitcoin has the best network effects out of all the cryptocurrencies because it's just got the strongest ones out of all. It's been around the longest. It has the most the strong hands, not weak hands. And on top of that, it's got a very vibrant developer community. And another point I think as a slight mischaracterization from your side, in my view, you were saying, oh yeah, other currencies have more transactions on them. I'm not sure I agree with that because especially in a Lightning world when payments are onion routed, we don't actually know for sure how many transactions are occurring. We don't actually know what is the true size of the Lightning Network due to the private channels nature of it as well.
You
So
do
I
because every
definitely
channel
wouldn't
has it
agree
on.
on some of those
It's
other
not
points.
true. The last thing's not true. You know exactly how much money is in Lightning because you have to open the channel on the main net. So you count how much money is on the main net in the Lightning Network. Furthermore, if you believe that the velocity of money reduces the value of money, which I do, then in a fully adopted network, more velocity lowers the value. Now, I don't believe that that applies to a not fully adopted network. And since Bitcoin is obviously not fully adopted, maybe we don't care about velocity right now. I support more velocity at this point. Vibrant developer community? Are you kidding? You can't even commit code to the Bitcoin core code base without 9 months of intense training if you're elite as fuck. And I'm quoting you numbers from one of the developers at Blockstream, whose name I can't remember right now. And then who else is building on the ecosystem? What Mimblewimble that just was shown to have like basically no anonymity today, right? Because of the transaction graph being visible, and that it's likely to not be patchable, right? That's news that came out today, and it doesn't matter because you probably maybe if Mimblewimble could be a soft fork, maybe you could get into Bitcoin. I don't think you can get it as a soft fork. I think it requires a hard fork, and then I don't think you're going to get it because Coinbase, which doesn't sell anonymity coins, and other large exchanges which don't sell anonymity coins, are not going to support a Bitcoin fork that rolls anonymity in because they might lose their bank accounts and then they have to go out of business or lose 80% of their income, right? So I love Bitcoin. I have a giant bag of it. I want the price to go up, but it is getting fucked up by a lot of other things, and the future is bright for a lot of other things. So I don't agree that the developer ecosystem is vibrant whatsoever. I don't believe the meme ecosystem is vibrant whatsoever. I don't believe that the number of people joining Bitcoin channels is vibrant whatsoever because I've joined them and they're dead. There's literally 0 posts a day. You go on Telegram and you type Bitcoin and you go to the most popular Bitcoin channel, maybe once a day an admin of that channel that has like 6 or 7 or 10,000 people in it will say something to another admin, and that's it.
Maybe you're in the wrong channels.
I'm not, bro, because I use the search function in Telegram and I type Bitcoin. So this is not a me problem, right? And I figured that can't be possible, right? I thought it was impossible. So I tried to find other ways to find popular channels, like looking through Combat's list of the top 200 channels and Googling it. Like I literally Googled like cryptocurrency Telegram channels. It's fucking dead, mate. Super dead. Even if you go on this
I would
subreddit.
suggest that's looking at the wrong channels. My view is that's looking at
Well,
like
send me the
the
links.
kind of.
I mean,
Sure,
if
I'll send you a couple links
yeah,
right now if you like. Let me fire up my Telegram if you
all right,
like. If
let's
you
do
can,
it.
you can jump in. For
I do
example,
like.
there's there's a few product community Telegram chats that are running right now. So, for example, the Cold Card, which is a great Telegram chat group. There's like
So what?
600 people in there. There's various Bitcoin meetup groups as well. So, and I think the other thing to
So
think
what's the
about as
most
well
popular
is
Bitcoin
that,
group? You know.
well, I think it's more like Bitcoin Twitter is where it really happens.
Okay, so
And
just so that
Bitcoin
you know,
Reddit.
you just 100% set me up for a punchline, and then we're like, yo, just kidding. I wasn't serious about that. You told me that there was some good links on Telegram, and then you named one for a hardware wallet that had 600 members in it. My price calls channel has 8,500 people in it. My trading channel has 3,500 people in it. My Bitcoin channel that I run has 5,500 people in it. And my new cryptocurrency, which I give free to Bitcoin holders, Hex.win, has got 4,500 people in it. So I don't know where the fuck 600 comes on that list, right? Because I run like six
That's a
channels.
hardware wallet. Remember,
I have
one
6
product.
channels with, right. So I'm on Telegram right now, and I'm typing Bitcoin in the search function, right? And then the first result I see that like looks popular is actually Bitcoin SV. Maybe there's something wrong with that. 362 members. Is the
Well,
search
if you
function just
think
suck?
you're judging it on the wrong thing, though. Like, who
Well,
cares
just give me a
about,
high
like,
member count
okay,
Bitcoin channel that I'll go to, like right now. I'm on Telegram. I've got 10,000
I don't,
plus
I,
users on there. I want to go to a popular Bitcoin channel on Telegram.
I don't think, I don't, that's not where it really down there.
Okay.
Maybe you're just like judging a fish bites a bird to climb a tree, right? I think that's what you're doing here. Essentially, the real
So
stuff
every
is
other
on
crypto has a
Bitcoin Club,
popular,
Bitcoin Reddit,
every
mailing
other, right.
list,
Every other
or
crypto has a popular Telegram channel, but Bitcoin doesn't because it's got the best network effect. What?
because
Bro,
again,
like I show you reality, but you want to
how
ignore
the-
it like it's not happening. Like I'm curb stomping your arguments, but you're just not paying attention. And I'm giving you time to fully give
not
them.
quite. I would say it's more important that it actually has a real network of people building, and there are people building on Bitcoin. It's just that they don't all congregate
Did
one
you
shitcoin
did you
channel,
use
right?
Bitcoin
Like,
within the last
you know,
24 hours?
yeah, I did.
Okay, I didn't. So I go on stage
I
a
made my
lot.
payment. I do little test payments here and there just because
Okay,
I like Lightning Network as well. So I'll
all
go
right,
to a web,
cool. Yeah,
I'll
somebody
make a
has to use
Lightning
this stuff.
payment just to
Yeah.
do the
You're not,
paywall. And I mean, my role is a little different because obviously I'm a podcaster in the day, so I try to stay up on using Bitcoin and some of the different technologies and so on. But yeah, and I'm doing a presentation at the Bitcoin Sydney meetup tomorrow night about Lightning Network as well.
cool.
So I'll be talking
Look, I
how
hope
there's a
Lightning
big
works out
conference
great. Like,
recently in Berlin.
I like
So
the Lightning
I
technology. I
think,
hope it works great. I think it's gonna take a little while, but I hope
yeah.
it gets
So
there. And I think
yeah,
it'll
so
make everything
that's
better for
that, and then
everyone
I'll bring.
too. So
Sorry.
let's. I think Lightning, when it works well, will make everything better for everyone because it's open source technology, and we all use similar addressing systems with BIP39, and so like it will help Bitcoin and a lot of other things, and I believe that will make the world a better place. Like I support Lightning.
Typically,
And
that's although I think they would need to be Bitcoin-like, right? Like Bitcoin or
well, sure,
Litecoin,
but everything
etc.
is. Everything is
Right.
Bitcoin like. Like I wanted to create a
And
bunch of
not just
Ethereum
that,
addresses, and I
it comes
used a
back to liquidity,
Bitcoin
right?
tool to do it. Say again?
But it comes to liquidity as well, right? So the other way I think of it is, even if you have Lightning Network on some of the shitcoins, ultimately, you need to be transacting on the one that actually has liquidity, actually has channels on it, has pathways through which you can route on the Lightning Network. So Litecoin's Lightning Network, for example, is much smaller than Bitcoin's Lightning Network. That's a fact, right? And so
Hold on one
again, and
second.
even
What
then,
what is smaller
you
than
would
Lightning's network?
Litecoin's Lightning Network is much smaller than
Oh,
Bitcoin's
sure.
Lightning Network,
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I didn't
right?
even know they had a
And
Lightning
so the
network.
point I'm getting to there is fundamentally people will want to transact in the most marketable money. So again, bring it back to economics, right? It's the economics of it, and that there is a liquidity benefit, as I've
Yeah.
demonstrated to you with the
So what
CoinMarketBook.cc
we
site.
yes.
There is fundamentally
I
and truthfully, factually, more liquidity
yep.
there.
So
So
let's talk about
I don't
liquidity.
accept your argument about, oh, you're focused on Bitcoin. I think
Sure.
it's just
Let's talk
fundamentally
about
you're
liquidity.
pointing at the wrong thing to present this view that,
The-
oh, Bitcoin's failing when
hold on.
actually Bitcoin's going from strength to strength, in my view.
I I have annihilated everything else so harshly that yes, the last remaining thing is the liquidity, which Bitcoin is the king of. 100%. If you need to place a $100 million sell order and get it filled, you're going to do way better getting that filled on Bitcoin than any other cryptocurrency. Period. I believe that, right? I believe in the order book thickness. I believe that it has the best regulatory certainty. I believe that it has the best counterparties with CME in the United States. I believe that the developers are smart and they work hard. There's a lot of really good things about Bitcoin, which is why it's the biggest bag I hold, right? I believe in all that. Now let's talk about how important liquidity really is, okay? You sent a couple test transactions and some Lightning transactions. I got to think that the amount of liquidity that it would like be required in the system to support you as a user is maybe $20, right? And I think what you'll find is, since only 2.8 million wallets have $1,000 in them, that the vast majority of users, in fact, don't need much liquidity at all because they're not placing giant orders at all, which means they don't mind the bid-ask spread and they're not going to get a lot of slippage, right? So it's fun to brag about that. And I do brag about it when I go on stage to support Bitcoin and say nice things about it, which I just did in Malta, right? I just called out fake Satoshi on stage and let everyone know what a fraud he was and let people know who the real Bitcoin was and protect it against attackers inside and out. I'm more than happy to do that. I'm also a realist. So I don't let other people say untrue things about the currency to help it or to hurt it, right? I like the realistic perspective.
Sure, but I
you
don't
don't need liquidity. You don't need it, and truthfully, I don't need it, and holders don't need it because they're not even transacting, they're not even selling. So this idea that somehow the liquidity...
I think you're totally wrong there. I'm
Bro,
sorry.
if you're a holder, you're not
explain.
selling. What are you talking about? That's the definition of holding.
Let me explain. So there is a fundamental, like if you read Ludwig von Mises' Theory of Money and Credit, there's a specific section, I can't remember it exactly off the top of my head, but he's saying essentially it's there might be different media of exchange, and there will be fundamentally different degrees of salableness. And this, let me just see if I can find the exact quote. Here it is. Okay, so he's saying there would be an inevitable tendency for the less marketable of the series of goods used as media of exchange to be one by one rejected until at last only a single commodity remained, which was universally employed as a medium of exchange, in a word, money. Okay, so what he's getting at there is he's suggesting that, you know, even if there's a slight liquidity advantage for one coin over another, it will self-reinforce to the point where the more liquid one wins. And that is why that is the most important thing when we talk about the salableness of Bitcoin and why Bitcoin is superior to all of the shitcoins is it has that. And why does it have that? Because fundamentally it's got a real long-term built up stability to it, and it's building over time. So that's fundamentally how I would think of it. Okay. But what's your view?
So you just stabbed yourself either in the back or the front with your own argument again.
Go on.
So you say liquidity matters, yes?
Yes.
Okay, and you say the most liquid coin wins, yes?
Okay, so let me explain that. It's longer term. I think. Because again.
Start that hedging, bro. Move that goalpost, man. I'm ready.
Well, I'm trying to explain it in a way that's like, I can't like hedge I can't explain every little complexity, right?
This is a big thing. This is not a small thing. But I'll let you to do your thing. Go ahead. Liquidity long-term liquidity is where we left off.
Yeah, right. But what I'm getting at there is I'm not saying necessarily Bitcoin goes to 100%, everything else goes to zero overnight. I'm saying longer term, that is the tendency we would expect to see. Whether not that there's ever a final state of the market, but it's likely that it's going to be winner takes most, if not winner takes all. Now, there may be some other, if you think like 80-20 Pareto, right? The 8 Bitcoin, maybe Bitcoin takes like that 80 or 85%, 90%, whatever. And then there'll be a bunch of shitcoins in that 5 or 10%, whatever that little leftover bit is, right?
Are you just describing Gresham's law to me? Or
So actually, I'm describing more like Thayer's law here. So Thayer's law is think of that like the opposite of Gresham's law. So Gresham's law is often incorrectly stated as bad money drives out good. But the actual correct, if you want to get more precise about it, is actually when one money is artificially overvalued by the government relative to another. That's actually what drives that Gresham's law result. And it is, in fact, one specific example of a generalized problem with price controls when imposed by the government. Now, Thayer's law is more like the other way around. It's like good money drives out bad. And we can think of that
They're
more just
actually
like
both
what
the
would
same
happen in a
thing.
world where there was no legal tender laws, right? And so it kind of brings back to the Austrian economics argument around why legal tender laws can be so bad for society, is because they can enable the government to push everyone onto a fiat money standard as opposed to
So,
commodity money standard, which is what
okay,
we had in the
hold on.
past.
I have to jump in because we've gone so far deep here. One, those two laws are actually equal. One looks at what's money, the money that is, it's just a framing error. Gresham's law states that bad money drives out good if you look at the money that's in use, because people would rather hold the good money and use the shit money. And it requires a peg, as you said,
Yes.
which introduces a mispricing. However, if you stop looking at what's left in the market and you look at what the person prefers to hold, then good money drives out bad in his wallet, but bad money drives out good in the market, right? So they're both the same statement. It's just whether you're looking at what's in the market or what's in the holder's wallet, right? Further, legal tender laws in the United States did not drive out other currencies. You can pay in whatever the fuck you want. You can pay in euros if you want. You can pay in Visa, PayPal dollars if you want. You can pay in Bitcoin if you want. You can pay in gold if you want. You can pay in your silver if you want. That is not the effect that making legal tender laws had whatsoever. So we went really deep down that path, but we kind of left the door open and didn't handle the door, which was, you say liquidity matters, and you say the most liquid coin should win, which is why Bitcoin's better than all the shit coins, because it's more liquid, right?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Well,
Go
now
on.
I'm going to curb stomp your argument. What's more liquid, Bitcoin or the US dollar?
So again, I foresaw that. That wasn't
Sure.
an unknown objection in my
Well,
view, right? Like, in my view,
we could have skipped this whole thing, and you could have avoided bringing up the liquidity argument, because now I'm going to use your argument against you, right? So you're using the bigger liquidity is better, so shitcoins suck, and I'm going to use the same exact thing, and that's why USD is better than Bitcoin. And now you've got to retract the argument and stop using it because it's a bad argument, which is your argument.
no,
It's a bad
think of it
one.
more like it's a combo thing. It's liquidity plus having a censorship-resistant thing aspect of it.
Cash
right?
is censorship
Because
resistant.
obviously the US
The
dollar,
US dollar is more censorship resistant than Bitcoin. You'll lose that one too.
no, I'm
Yes.
sorry. That's straight up wrong. I disagree with that.
What are you
Sorry.
talking about? Why do
I
you think drug
the
users use the US dollar to launder all their fucking money and they don't use Bitcoin? Because it works better. Vastly better.
Well,
And it has more liquidity.
are there AML and sanctions laws? Are there FATCA and CRS laws? Are there tax reporting laws? All sorts of these laws that exist within the USD
So you think
world. But if you're operating in a Bitcoin context, those things, and again, if you're operating in a what I call a Bitcoin native context, right? Obviously, you're not leaving your Bitcoins at the bank, right, at an exchange. Then FATCA
So
and
can we-
AML
so-
and sanctions
hold
and
on,
all these
hold on. So
rules
let-
don't sort of apply to you in that sense.
they also don't apply to human beings transacting cash with each other. All right? In Australia they do, because they passed extra laws that says you can just not give this much cash to someone else anywhere. But in the United States that's not the fucking case. If you want to give someone $200,000 cash for their house, you can walk up to them and hand them $200,000 cash for their house. Period. All right? So in the United States, the things that you're saying, they are not true. They're inaccurate. You're saying things that are false. And I'm pointing it out to you. US dollar is more anonymous than Bitcoin is. When you use Bitcoin, you leave a trail. When you use cash, there ain't no fucking trail, right? Which is the
Sorry,
reason.
when hold on, I said censorship resistant, not anonymous, right? I mean, when you use the US dollar, somebody can censor your transaction
No, they can't.
if you want to send it digitally.
No. Oh, digitally. Well, guess what? There's enough liquidity in just the printed dollars to exceed your market cap anyway. So we don't have to talk about digitally. You're losing the liquidity argument. You're losing the anonymity argument. You're losing the censorship resistant argument. They just also happen to have so much extra liquidity in their non-censorship resistant part. And to tell you the truth, actually sending wires appears to be pretty fucking censorship resistant, because everyone that gets scammed with romance frauds and 419 Nigerian scams, they don't get their fucking money back. That money stays gone, and the scammers get to keep it. So I'm not exactly sure why you think that there's not censorship resistance in the US dollar in wire transfers when the scammers get to keep all the fucking money they steal anyway. I mean, isn't it obvious that it's censorship resistant? Because the criminals get to keep the money? It's very obvious. Curb,
No, sorry.
stomping, everything
quite.
you say, all of it. Except the shit I
No,
agree on.
no.
I do agree on some.
No, not really. I don't think that's right. Like fundamentally, it's more about a longer term case here, right? As in, what if you want an alternative to the US dollar, and if you want an alternative, then this is the alternative, Now, I'm not saying that Bitcoin necessarily wins that battle. I think it will, but it's not like preordained in the galaxy or in the stars or whatever like that, right? Whereas you're seeming to say, like, I think there's a bit of a conflation here, right? Because you're saying, oh, yeah, so Stefan, you said liquidity matters overall. And I say, well, yeah, amongst the cryptocurrencies, right? Amongst
Oh,
the
okay.
cryptos.
Okay. So can you explain to me why liquidity matters in crypto, but liquidity, d- you're I don't
All
want to
right, let me
belabor
let
this
me try
point.
let me try
I
this
don't want to
again. Let me try
belabor
this again.
the. Okay, go ahead.
So look, it's think of it more like it's liquidity plus certain other things, right? Plus
Okay.
certain other components of Bitcoin or characteristics of Bitcoin that set it far above and ahead
Right.
every other
So,
cryptocurrency.
uh-huh. Okay. So can I ask
All
you
right, right, and
why shitcoins do more transaction volume and have higher market caps, and why the Bitcoin price dropped 85% even though it's so fucking awesome? I mean, it's
because
so
okay,
awesome.
so a few things. The market cap point around okay, it dropped 85%, etc. Bitcoin is moving in waves, and I'm sure you understand that as well, right? You and
I've
your
seen the
listeners, I'm
holder
sure you
waves
know
graph.
this is a seasonal thing, right? Like this is
Hmm.
we have waves of adoption, we have big groups of people who come in, and because again, it's not like it's not like that the people just knew about Bitcoin and they all just steadily adopted it along the way. People move in momentum trading, right?
Okay.
So they sort of see it moving up and then they all chase it, right? Because it's FOMO, right? That's a different
Okay.
thing,
So
right?
why do less people accept Bitcoin now than they did a couple of years ago? Why is that going the wrong
Because there was
direction?
well in 2013 and 14 there was this whole merchant adoption thing and like oh okay you need to we need to all go shout at a merchant and tell them to take Bitcoin and right but my view on that is more like it won't make sense for a lot of these people to actually take Bitcoin until their own expenses are in Bitcoin as well so then they can
Mm.
actually close that loop so
Mm-hmm.
actually what makes more sense is holding for now and over time, yes, it needs to get built out. And I think we're seeing this now with companies like Bitrefill, who are doing Lightning payment, and you can buy vouchers and things with Lightning or Bitcoin over Lightning Network. And so we're seeing that happen. But fundamentally, coming back to that network effects point, it's speculation. Holders, they are what provide the reservation demand for Bitcoin. It's the
Yes,
holders that make it
I
fun
love that
who
a
give it that
peer-to-peer
value.
I love that a peer-to-peer electronic cash system has its primary use case as non-use. I think that's pretty funny.
Well, it depends what you mean by use. In my view, hodling is a use.
I mean,
Hodling is
like
using.
opening the client and entering a number and hitting like send, or like watching your balance go up and like receiving some shit. That's use. That's I mean, because if people didn't do that, really, what utility would the currency have? At some point,
Well,
whatever extra value you've accrued from holding
right.
has
So,
to
Richard, do
actually
you
translate.
disagree then? Do you disagree that hodling is using?
I agree that hodling is using if and only if something that isn't hodling occurs at some point in the future. So yes,
Oh, sure.
you
I
can
like
accrue value. You can I love the store value. I believe store values are worth more than transactional networks. That's the reason gold's worth 9 trillion, and Visa plus PayPal plus Mastercard, plus all the other credit card processing companies don't add up to a tenth of it. So I'm for the store value argument, right? I'm for the holding and making mad gains, and it's what my currency that I built is built to do. It's built to do something Bitcoin can't do. In Bitcoin, the only new coins are given to miners. And the only thing the miners do with them are sell them on market to push the price down, to pollute the environment with pollution. Now, is that required in Bitcoin? Yes, because it is a security model. The security model is proof of work, and proof of work can only be trusted if it is wasteful. Period. So that's how it works, right? Now, could we reduce the waste? Yes, we could. And how do I know that? Because lots of other networks are transacting lots of volume with no problems, billions and billions and billions of dollars, and they're doing it with less waste. Because in fact, all the Bitcoin mining network is a protection racket. The only people that could attack you through the 51% hash attack vector are the same miners that you're paying the fees to. And they're saying, oh, it'd be a pity if your transaction was rolled back, isn't it? Right? Mafia style. Now, back in the old days when it was CPU and GPU, anyone could have attacked the network and could have been financially incented to do so because anyone could be turned into a miner because there was so mush hardware out there. But now that it's SHA-256 ASICs only, and now there's only 4 or 5 companies in the world you could possibly buy them from and even attempt to be cash positive doing so, you're really paying a protection racket to these guys. And what have they done with the money? Well, what Bitmain did with the money is they made a fake copy of Bitcoin that they promoted as the real Bitcoin, and then took all of that money and all that economic energy that the good, wholesome, honest Bitcoin miners gave them and stabbed them right in the back and made the emergency down target, the emergency difficulty retarget, try and take all the miners away from Bitcoin and kill real Bitcoin and have covert ASIC boost in there so that they keep getting outsized returns on their miners, right? That's what really happened, okay? That's what really happened with a proof of work safety ecosystem, is that we have now a fraudulent copy impersonating the real one to no one's benefit that I can see, right? So I think miners are overpaid. I think it's security theater. I think it's a protection racket. And I think a lot of other currencies are transacting a lot of volume with no problems whatsoever, and that those miners are overpaid. Now on Ethereum, I can get a non-rollbackable transaction with a more diverse, more robust network of GPU miners that aren't these 4 or 5 centralized groups of horror that have taken over Bitcoin, okay? You know, when I first got into Bitcoin, I double-clicked the EXE, and Bitcoin came into my computer for free, 50 BTC block reward every time I found a block with no pool. That's when I got in. That's when I started. So then I said, you know, I like this. And then I went all in with a lot of money, right? Helped make the $30 top. Well, guess what? Now you don't have any freemium onboarding for users anymore because no one will give up the coins for free. There's no free mining. So what happens? Now people get freemium onboarded to Monero or freemium onboarded to Raven because you can GPU mine it. And then all those guys that would have became buyers and would have been onboarded into the ecosystem and had speculative stickiness to have a reason to stay engaged, right? They're not here anymore, which is why the chat rooms are dead, which is why the memes are dead, which is why I don't even post on the Reddit. I don't even bother posting there. It's that bad, right? I love Twitter. I think crypto Twitter is amazing. I think crypto Twitter is vibrant, both the Bitcoin one and the altcoin one. So I'm definitely a fan of the Twitter. So like, I want censorship resistant peer-to-peer money that appreciates in value. I want people to have security in the future price that things are going to have. And I invented the first cryptocurrency in the world to have a chart of future market supply, not total supply. The 1% of Bitcoin that's owned by the Winklevi twins, the 1% of Bitcoin that's owned by the Plus Token Ponzi schemers, the 1.4% of Bitcoin that's owned by Mt. Gox trustee, the 1% of Bitcoin that's owned by Tim Draper, all of those guys could dump on your head and shit on the price whenever they want and cut it in half. Any one of those guys could cut the price in half like that. And if they told you when they were going to sell their coins, you wouldn't believe them because you would think they were lying. It's not in their best interest. My system is the first system to have a truth engine where the inflation is only paid to the stakers who declare how long they're going to hold, and you have a chart of future market supply, not total supply, market supply. You know when people can sell their coins because you know when their stakes are ending. And then you can time your own stakes to be when a giant whale isn't ending stake, and it reduces volatility, and it addresses a larger market than Bitcoin address. We do everything Bitcoin does, more secure, lower fees, better user interface, right? The GUI interface in Bitcoin Core is garbage. It doesn't even sign BC1 transactions. If you want to sign from a BC1 address, from a native SegWit BEC32 address, you can't even do it. It's not even supported, but it's supported in Electrum.
All right, so let me respond to a couple points here. So again, I think it just becomes a little bit of a shell game here. Like you just keep kind of throwing these other little ideas around, like, oh, my coin's more secure, lower fees, da da da.
It is.
And also,
every ERC20 is.
The other thing is,
every ERC20 is cheaper to transact. I wouldn't say more secure at all. I do not think other ERC20s are more secure than Bitcoin.
So that's the change then. But anyway, the point is, I think you're judging Bitcoin by only Bitcoin Core as well. I think there are some very smooth wallets and other interfaces that exist today, such as you can get, say, Zap wallet on Lightning, and that's a really great wallet.
I love Electrum. Electrum's amazing.
Or on-chain.
I love Electrum. Electrum's amazing.
Or Electrum, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Electrum's a great example.
Yeah, and it works with more than one currency.
Maybe it's a bit more of a power user tool, but it's still a great wallet.
Dude,
I
so
like it.
easy.
I advocate it as well.
Yeah.
But
here's what's fucked up. I still like Bitcoin. Like I really do truly still like Bitcoin, and go on stage and say only positive things about it. When I went to Malta, I said only positive things about Bitcoin. There's a lot of good shit here that we can talk about. But it's not good for Bitcoin to pretend that competition doesn't exist. It's not good for Bitcoin to think that 2.8 million users with over $1,000
But am I
is good.
pretending competition doesn't exist, or am I simply stating that there are certain aspects of vectors along which that competition won't beat Bitcoin, for example, the liquidity?
Right.
And
So
the other point I get a bit frustrated is when I see this whole I like Bitcoin, now buy my shitcoin kind of view.
I'm
I
sure
sort
you
of
do get
see this
frustrated by
perspective
that.
out there.
Yep.
Sorry?
You know what I get frustrated by? I like Bitcoin and I won't actually do anything to make it better. I get frustrated by that. So
Well,
my path of taking responsibility for the quality of the currency leads to people improving it. Your path of saying everything's fucking great, and not only great, but actually the best in the world, leads to people shoving their thumbs up their ass and holding because that's the best thing they can do, which is why everyone has their thumbs up their ass.
holding is a great thing they can do, but I actually do advocate people help educate or help build on the system as well. And now everyone plays their different role. So some people have the role of being a hodler, some people have the role of being a developer, some people have the role of making other applications that operate on top of Bitcoin. That's the
So
way
let's
it
talk about
works. I
this.
don't think
What applications
yeah,
are built on top of Bitcoin? Lightning, okay. BitMEX, okay.
like wallets.
What else?
Wallets yeah, I think of it fundamentally is about holding for now. They're the most important things right now. But longer term, yes, I think people will build other financial
Do you know
services
holding
on top
doesn't
of Bitcoin,
onboard
but
new
they don't all
users,
have to be
man?
done on chain, if
You
you
know
will. So
holding doesn't onboard
multi-signature,
new
for
users.
example. Sorry.
You understand that holding does not onboard new users.
Indirectly, it does because it provides again that overall reservation demand, which is what attracts more people into it longer term, right? So yes, you can say, oh look, Bitcoin dropped 85%, and yes, you're right.
It's
But
sad.
again, this is a wave thing. This is an adoption waves thing. So that to me isn't a big deal because we've seen that before. We'll see it again, right? We'll see another big we'll likely see another big bull run and we'll see another crash just again. And then, the
So
mainstream media will come out
let,
and say, oh, look, Bitcoin is dead, right? And
so
it'll be
let's try
rinse and
something.
repeat.
Let's try something different. So we've talked about Bitcoin a lot, right? I
Yep.
have done the minimum to actually talk about my thing. Like I haven't told you about any of the
Oh,
game
I don't
theory.
know. I think you kind of subtly inject these little points about, oh, hex this, hex better
Well, it
that.
shouldn't be subtle.
Um,
It should be very clear because I'm trying to make you rich. I'm trying to give you something better than what you have now for free. I'm working really hard to improve your life and give you what you want for
is it
free.
for free if people to dox their privacy for it though?
Do explain that to me. Explain the doxing to me.
Wouldn't a user to claim hex have to dox some components of their UTXO set to hex?
I don't understand what you mean by docs. Do you mean like there's a public blockchain that shows that certain people have certain balances, right? That's what a blockchain is?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And they would have to reveal to you or to whoever's running hex which UTXOs they hold.
So let me explain what happens and then you tell me where the security hole is, okay?
Got it.
Let's say you have one address, one Bitcoin address, and you install Tor browser and you install MetaMask, and then you go onto the wallet website and you say, here's my Bitcoin address. And you click claim. And it says, sign this. You hit copy, you paste it in your wallet, you click sign, you copy the signature, you paste it there, you click submit, and you're done. Finished. Your coins are in your wallet. Now, in order for that to happen, you had to have a penny or two of Ethereum in your wallet, or someone else would have had to forward your transaction for you. We support both things, right? So now what have we done? We already know that there is an address that has a Bitcoin balance that's public over here on the Bitcoin blockchain. And now the new piece of information we got is that that address over there claims some hex at an ETH address over here. So these two addresses are tied together now. But that's it. No one knows your IP. I don't have IP logs, right? You use Tor. So where's the doxing? There's no AML KYC. There's no doxing. Now, if you wanted to fuck up and create some virtual doxing, if someone really wanted to look into you, right? Then you would like claim all your Bitcoin addresses to one ETH address. Don't do that. For every BTC address you want to claim, make a new ETH address and click the Tor circuit, give me a new circuit. And then you've got a new circuit and a new ETH address for every one of your Bitcoin addresses. And you're as anonymous as you entered, as long as Tor works, which I believe it does. It's like industry standard, best anonymity you can actually get in the world currently. So like, I don't understand this whole like, I'm going to dox myself. Furthermore, do you know how much free money was given to Bitcoin holders? that involved vastly more doxing and made people millions and millions of dollars? BCH, which had you install a fucking client that wasn't audited, that had access to your real private keys. They did that, right? Even though that was the dumbest, most horrible thing they did, and I wrote the guide that included using a virtual machine to make sure they couldn't steal your fucking keys, it still went fine. Nobody got hacked, right? XRP, give your email address. We ain't getting your email address. Totally optional. You don't got to put your email address in. If you want to put it in because you want to get an email when something cool happens, great. But if you don't want to, who gives a shit? I emailed the list for the first time.
So,
go ahead.
So are you assuming then that everyone is going to do the correct procedure there? That they're not going to accidentally link up their addresses all into one?
I think that the vast majority of users doesn't care about that security whatsoever, and they don't even use Tor in their Bitcoin client. And if you don't even use Tor in your Bitcoin client, then you're already doxed off the bat because it can see what node got that transaction first, right? Like the amount of people that actually care about Bitcoin security is fucking zero. They don't even bother to take their coins off exchange. So I tell everyone how to do it. And I know that most people won't do it because indeed they don't give a fuck. And there, you could make a strong case that they shouldn't bother giving a fuck because in the history of Bitcoin, really, who has been attacked through that doxing vector? Nobody, not even the darknet guys. The darknet guys all fuck up their OPSEC on a side channel and their proxy stops working and they log in directly from their cable modem, right? Or their server gets 0-dayed, right? No one has ever actually got fucked up for using Bitcoin from the Chainalysis perspective. Everyone that's gotten fucked up for Bitcoin, because I read all the indictments, they get fucked up from something else they messed up. Like people say Bitcoin's not confiscatable, right? Tone Vays likes to talk that shit a lot. It's not confiscatable. Well, that's real funny because I see it for auction at the government auction all the time from confiscating it. So one of you motherfuckers is wrong. And I think since I'm watching the auctions, I'm gonna say that it is confiscatable. Oh, but let me hedge it. Actually, I'm lying to you and it really is confiscatable, but it's not confiscatable via this way that, okay. A lot of hedging and a lot of bullshitting going on for people trying to pump their bags when this thing is actually already awesome. Bitcoin is actually already awesome and works really well and went from 0 to 20,000 and still has 10x larger market cap than the next thing. It's still fucking great, but you don't have to lie about it, right? So you just said everyone's going to dox themselves for claiming this shit, and I'm saying that no one has had any problems doxing themselves from taking all those other free coins like Lumens, like XRP, like BCH, like BSV. 4 or 5 of the other top 10 fucking cryptos are given away for free. I got my Bitcoin for free, but now you're trying to make it so other people don't take that free money. That's not ethical, actually, right? People need money. Well, some people are fucking broke.
I think it's. I think of it like just trying to get current holders of Bitcoin on because you want the one side, so you're giving it to them for free, and you're kind of selling a bit of a false promise here about, oh, my coin is more secure and therefore long term,
I will send you my audits that Bitcoin doesn't have. I spent $60,000 on audits. Bitcoin spent $0 on audits. So yes, I take my $60,000 that I gave experts in security auditing my software. I will publish that, and then you guys publish your audits that you spent $0 on because you don't fucking have any. How dare you accuse me?
It's not.
You're breaking up again. Say again.
No, you're gonna get the audits done. What kind of system is that?
All I heard was you're gonna get the audits done. What kind of system is that? I think I missed something.
I'm saying what is if you can centrally who is doing audits on the coin or whatever.
The business of auditing software is very small, and the auditors that do good work are very known, and they publish the tools that they build to audit things, and they get peer reviewed, and papers get written about them. So, for instance, one of our auditors that's tied for the best auditor in the world for Solidity contracts is Chain Security, and Chain Security wrote a tool called Varex, which lets you deterministically prove things about smart contracts that didn't exist before. The other company, which we didn't use, I would call Trail of Bits, and you can review their work auditing all types of software from all types of venues because they're very good at it. The other company that we use is Coin Fabric out of Argentina, who their team kind of works with the RSK guys who's trying to release something like Ethereum on Bitcoin, right? I think one of their co-founders was Sergio Lerner. And if you know anything about Bitcoin, you know about Sergio Lerner, right?
Yeah, so look, and then funding audit. Are you personally funding it, or is there some developer?
No, I paid for it with my money.
How's that?
I paid for the audit with my money. That's how that worked.
And then is actually any other reward?
Your connection is fucked again for some reason. Usually I can like tease out what you're saying from like half. Do you want to try? Can you want to try just hitting? Yeah. So there's two things that you're going to want to look at, right?
You hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you good enough. I mean, all I needed to hear was Founders Reward, and I can just fill in the rest, right? So there's two things that you're going to care about if you're looking for Founders Rewards. One, there's an origin address that get copy of bonuses. If you get in the first day, you get a 20-cent bonus. The origin address gets a copy of it. If you refer somebody, you get a 20% bonus. Origin address gets a copy. If you get referred, you get a 10% bonus. Origin address gets a copy. If you emergency end your stake, half of it goes to the origin address and the penalties, and half of it goes to the stakers that stayed staked. If you don't end your stake within 2 weeks of when you said you should, you start incurring late penalties, then half that penalty goes to the stakers, half that penalty goes to the origin. So it gets bonuses. Doesn't get anything on your claim, your base claim of 10,000 hex per BTC, and it doesn't get anything on interest. If you stake your coins, you get interest. It ain't getting none of that, right? So there's that, and then there's also ability to onboard to the ecosystem by transforming Ethereum into Hex, which is very similar to how EOS did it. They raised $4.2 billion that way. You would send Ethereum, they give you EOS at the end of the day. 2 buckets, 1 bucket full of the coin, in this case Hex, and another empty bucket. People put Ethereum into that bucket. If you're 10% of the ETH bucket, you get 10% of the Hex bucket. Bucket's empty, new day, empty ETH bucket. Here's your Hex. If you're 20% of the ETH that day, you get 20% of Hex, new day. That happens for 351 days. Very similar to how EOS did it, where they did it for 350 days. They're cycled every 23 hours. Our cycle is every 24 hours. So those are the two things that you're worried about in regards to someone having a lot of it. Does that answer your question?
Got it. Yeah, no, okay, so got it. So I just think...
So should we talk about whether it's good for there to be a large bag holder or not? You might dump on your head, right?
Sure.
You might dump the price on you, right? So this currency prevents people from surprise dumping the price by diluting them and paying everyone else that's staked and locked up all of the inflation in the system. So in Bitcoin, it took 10 years to get down to 4% inflation. After the first year, Hex will have a maximum of 3.69%. And that took Bitcoin 10 years to get to that, right? And inflation in Hex is nothing like inflation in Bitcoin because we don't have externalities. We don't pay miners block rewards. We don't pay a miner inflation. Miners just get a few pennies of fees. That's all they get. So we don't have miners constantly pushing the price down all the time with their block rewards, which is what you do have in Bitcoin. So, which means that if you're an average length, average size staker, there is no inflation to you because the inflation is being given to you, which means it's actually 0% inflation. Less if people lose their coins and keys, right? Whereas in Bitcoin, you have real inflation that really gets sold on the market because people have electricity bills to pay. We have all-time high difficulty, but we don't have all-time high price, which causes extra selling pressure because they don't have the privilege of holding. They've got bills to pay, right? Furthermore, since we are the currency that pays you to stake and publicly declare when you can sell your coins, I would be very surprised if people that had large bags of this currency didn't lock it up. And if they didn't lock it up, then you would see it on the chart that they didn't, and you would know to be scared. Maybe they can dump. Now this system, it does things and gives you truth about the future market supply that no other cryptocurrency has ever had. Because masternode coins and staking coins, you can end the stakes whenever you want, you can close the node whenever you want, you can dump the price. No certainty, right? Gox could say he's selling all the coins tomorrow at market. He could do that. I wouldn't like that. I would hate that, but he could do it, right? And it's what he did in 2018. He dumped 40K coins. Didn't tell anyone about it. He did that, right? He dumped 40K BCH and 40K BTC. Well, I built something to solve all those problems. So of all the currencies in the world that could be accused of like, oh, somebody's going to dump on me, that's a whale. You're like, no, we built this currency to stop that from happening. We penalize whales 75%. I told you that 40% of all Bitcoins held in addresses over 1,000. We penalize those guys 50% of their stack, up to 75% of their stack if they have over 10K coins, which is a lot of wallets, a lot. So it turns out after all the penalties and stuff, you can only claim about 1/3 of these coins.
Okay, right. So look, I think it's one of those things where look, okay, Richard, you're a smart guy, right? Like, you're a smart guy. You're very good at like, um, kind of engineering this system, right? But my
Yeah.
view is, I think actually a lot of these things are kind of over-engineered, right? And it's
Well,
like, how
maybe,
are you gonna how
but they
like
end
why
after a
would
year.
people?
They all end
So
after
why
a
would
year.
people?
So there's no
Sorry.
more claiming after a year. There's no more referral program after a year. There's no more speed bonus after a year. Almost all of the amazing game theory goes away after the first year. And all you're left with is we pay stakers instead of miners, and we inflate it a maximum of 3.69% a year. And that gets pushed far out into the future because it's only realized when people end their stakes and mint the rewards. So, like, we have an
Well,
extremely, after the first year, we have extremely low inflation and none of that exciting crap I just explained to you.
right. So I think, yeah. So again, I think it's not gonna have what. And now maybe you would disagree with this and you wouldn't like that argument,
It'll have
but
no
my
liquidity
view
when it
is
starts. It'll have no liquidity. No
well,
one will
that's one
accept
part
it
of it. But I think
anywhere.
it's also kind of one way to explain it is like that quote unquote immaculate conception of Bitcoin, right? Because it got formed at this time when there wasn't a whole swathe of industry of shitcoiners who wanted to scam people, who were just like, had this incentive to print money, right? To print their own money. So instead of that, people can more easily place their trust or their investment into something like Bitcoin compared to Hex, because fundamentally they know that it was made at a time when there wasn't this whole cottage industry of starting your own shitcoin.
So I was there. Like, I don't know when you got into Bitcoin. There's a likelihood that I got into it before you. You know, I mined it
Yep,
back
sure.
when it was $1. I bought heavy when it was 30 and watched that shit go down to a penny, which I wasn't very excited about. But I was so rich at the time, it didn't really matter that much. Um, and like, I love that so many people are willing to buy my bags at like 8K and such when I bought them at 30. I think it's fabulous. I love it. I hope they go up to 800K, right? Like, I love it. But I don't think that I'm actually a better person because I got in earlier. And I know a lot of other people that got in earlier and then they got out. And then getting in early didn't matter to them because they got in and they got out and they didn't get any appreciation, right? So, like, appeals to age, I don't care about. Appeals to wealth, I really don't care about. What I care about is censorship resistance, price appreciation, security, onboarding millions of users. Those are the things I care about, right? And I see millions of people getting onboarded to scams because they get promised high rates of return and then the price goes to zero. So I would like to use similar tactics and similar advertisements with a trustless, verifiable, audited peer-to-peer system so that you could have similar price appreciation without the damn dump at the end, without the exit scam, right? So imagine onboarding all of those millions of users that got the shit robbed out of them. Imagine that those same guys got onboarded with the same amount of wealth into something that didn't just die at the end, that was honest and fair and real, right? I got in and got to mine Bitcoin for free, and I'm handing these coins out for free. And that reminds me of when people could have bought Bitcoin for $1. And I'm recreating that epic. I'm recreating that opportunity for people. I'm killing whales for people. I'm doing something that Bitcoin can't do. Bitcoin has time locking, but it can't do time deposits because the game theory only allows them to reward miners for paying electric companies. The game theory does not allow Bitcoin to reward holders and developers and evangelists for other good, positive behaviors that help everyone. And that's not a good thing, that's a bad thing. I have the opportunity as the founder of this to install game theory, which rewards everyone for positive behavior. If you refer people, you get money. If more people adopt after you, you get more. And that's fair because they brought more economic mass, so we can inflate the currency a little bit to reward you for bringing that extra economic mass, right? We don't overpay the miners to go create a fake copy and try and kill the real thing. We don't do any of that polluting stuff extra. We do it the minimum necessary. We still use proof of work. It's still an ERC20. It's a hybrid proof of stake, proof of work. So if you want inflation, you have to prove that you'd staked for a length, or you had to prove that you had a Bitcoin address that had a balance at the snapshot. That's the proof of stake component. The proof of work component is the transactional one, right? So we're transacting volume with lower fees, with audits, with free money given to Bitcoiners, with a referral program, with the same type of high interest reward, Ponzi style, scammy style sales pitches that people deeply desire, which is the reason they're onboarding to every other scam except Bitcoin. And we bring them in on that bullshit because it's mathematically correct. If you were the only Bitcoin miner and you only had $1 invested in Bitcoin mining, you would get 3.8 or 3.9% of all of the Bitcoin coming out this next year. And since there's about 18 million coins, let's call it 4% on 18 million coins is what, like 50K coins or something? So let's say you're going to get 50K coins and you had $1 of mining equipment. Well, that's real math. That's really how it would work if you were the only miner. That's how it worked when Satoshi was the only miner. But the market cap was much less. 0, in fact. So, in our math, the advertising that we can give for percentage returns that are mathematically accurate are, here's how much the big payday is at the end, all the unclaimed coins, times the adoption bonuses, which can up to 3x them, plus the inflation, plus the early and late end stake penalties, all of those bonuses. If you're the only staker, this is how much you're going to get from all those bonuses on day 353. And then the only way that number comes down, it's going to be a huge, massive, giant percent. And the only way that number comes down is other people stake on top of you. Just the same with Bitcoin mining. The only way you don't make every single new coin is if other Bitcoin miners start jumping on top of you and beating you up with difficulty by competing against you. And staking in our system works the same way. If too many people stake, then the rewards go down to a minimum of 3.69%. If you're an average length, average size staker, because we reward you 20% extra every extra year you stake, just like a CD in the real world. Someone had to build the CD of the digital blockchain realm. Someone had to build it. Bitcoin couldn't do it. You already got time locking, but you can't pay anyone to lock, so they just get screwed. Someone had to build it, so I built it, and I'm giving it away for free to Bitcoin holders. For some reason, it's like really hard to give them free stuff, even though they already accepted tons of other free stuff that's in the top 10. It's like, all right, whether you guys want to or not, I'm going to try and make your lives better by building something that needs to exist. If you want to replace everything in finance, you have to replace every product at the bank. And the bank doesn't primarily do currency. Money exchange houses primarily do currency. The bank primarily does credit cards, checking account, savings account, and time deposit. Time deposit's the top 3 product at the bank. And no one else is doing it except me. And I should be praised for that shit.
All right, so here's where I disagree. So I think a couple things. So first of all, I think high level, I think you're essentially selling to your followers this kind of false promise, right? Because they feel like, oh, I missed out on Bitcoin on the $1 a days. Oh, maybe I can get in at Hex and I can be an early adopter in Hex. And oh, look, isn't it cool if I get part of this first year and all those fantastic sign-up bonuses and referral bonuses and so on that you mentioned with the origin address and the transformation and all of that. Yep. And fundamentally, it's just selling people this false dream. And the view I have
what makes
is
it
more
false?
Like,
why is it false?
Because I see no reason why Hex will outcompete Bitcoin. I see no reason why that would occur.
So in the top 10 coins, which ones do you think belong there?
Basically none.
Okay.
I think none of them will, so let me clarify. So belong there, I think, yeah, sure, people can try them. To suggest that they will actually outcompete Bitcoin in a real free market competition, I think that's extreme unlikely.
Have you heard of BNB?
Do they have a right to exist, quote unquote? Yeah, maybe, but will they actually outcompete Bitcoin? No. Reason being, they are not meaningfully doing anything that actually kind of matters to make them better than Bitcoin in some meaningful way. They're often just doing some kind of silly security trade-off against some other thing that Bitcoin, in some sense, bit the bullet on, right? Bitcoin bites the bullet in certain ways to maintain a certain level of censorship resistance that, and in truth, some of this was more like a couple of years ago where more people would say stuff like, oh, I can do more transactions on chain, etc., whatever. But
I don't like high throughput
the way I'm doing this is more like, not everything necessarily has to be done on chain on the Bitcoin blockchain, right?
I agree.
Financial services can be built on top of Bitcoin without necessarily being on chain time deposits, for example. I think it might be more like we see Bitcoin is this native kind of bedrock thing that's at the very base layer of our coming financial system, and we need to imagine and envision a new financial system, but one where Bitcoin and Satoshis, right, it might be denominated in sats, right? And that is my view on what we will see, and people will build their products on top of that. So a quick example, Unchained Capital, right? So Unchained Capital, so disclosure, they're a podcast sponsor of mine, but I like their model. I genuinely think they have a good model that they offer people the ability to do 2 of 3 multi-sig with Bitcoin. And then, for example, if you want to put up collateral, put up Bitcoin as collateral, you can do that. Now you can get USD without selling your Bitcoin, right? So it can be more tax efficient, right? So that's an example of a financial service that I think makes a little bit more sense and is being built, like banking being built on top of Bitcoin rather than everything being natively done on the chain, so to speak, right?
You
That,
just
I guess we
advertised
have
like a
different views
counterparty
there.
with counterparty risk, right?
Well, yeah. So
Okay.
yes, yeah.
So
There is still that
right.
risk.
I'm advertising something that doesn't have counterparty risk. It's trustless. Trustless interest. No order book. No counterparty. No BitGo. No hardware key management. No HSM. No hardware security module, right? Real, truly trustless interest. If
So
you
in that
invest,
model, I'm curious, what's the security model then? Like for a holder of Hex, how will they do they use a hardware wallet? Like what
sure.
is the
Yeah, we
how
support
do
all
they
that.
keep it secure?
Yeah. So if you like Trezor or Ledger, then you can leave your keys in those devices and sign natively with Trezor your Bitcoin statement. If you're on Linux, you can sign natively with your Ledger. If you're on Windows, their app doesn't sign properly natively, so I suggest you use it through Electrum. So both Ledger and Trezor, and I believe Cold Card are supported through Electrum, which I believe is the best Bitcoin wallet. So that's where your keys live, and you can sign offline, and then you can move your transaction from your computer that has your keys, or your hardware wallet that has your keys. They stay in it. You can move your signed statement over to your internet connected computer to then submit it through, in your case, Tor, and to a new Ethereum address with a new onion route for every claim. So now, what happens? When you free claim your hex, if you claim the first day, you get a 20% bonus. You get 10,000 hex per Bitcoin. You can claim a single Satoshi. I think you'll lose money on the fees because it's unlikely you're mining your own Ethereum block. You could if you wanted to. It's more likely that you're paying a penny or two of Ethereum to have someone else mine it for you. And you're the only one that can mint your coins. It's very important that you understand that no one else is giving you these coins. Just like a Bitcoin block reward that you mine yourself and create your own coins, Hex operates the same way. You create your own coins with that proof of stake, proof of work hybrid that I told you about. So now, what can you do with those coins? When you free claim, your coins are auto staked for a minimum of 350 days, 90%. 10% you can do whatever you want with, and you can choose on your auto stake, your 350 day minimum auto stake, you can choose to make it longer if you want more adoption or more free shares, more bonus shares. We have longer pays better and bigger pays better, just like a normal bank. And a normal bank and a normal CD, the longer you lock your money, the more interest you get. You get about 20% more interest every extra year you lock. We give you 20% more shares every extra year you lock. And they also have jumbo CDs, where you get about 10% more interest if you have over $100,000 in your account. We also have an equivalent to that, where bigger pay better, if you max it out, pays you about 10% more. And primarily that exists so people don't spam the network with smaller transactions. We prefer that there's an incentive to be efficient with the network and have larger transactions. It also kind of emulates what masternodes have done with like minimum buy-ins, right? It gives people a target to aim for. So now you're auto-staked, and what does that mean? Your coins are actually burnt when they're auto-staked, which may be advantageous to you in a tax perspective because it may defer their hitting your like financial books till later. It depends on where you live. And then we keep track of those coins being burnt because we still need to inflate the currency knowing that they existed, right? Because otherwise there'd be no inflation rewards to give anybody if 100% of people staked, which would make any sense, right? And so now when the day 353 happens, if you claim first day, you're only going to be staked till day 350 or 351. And you really want to be staked for day 353 when the massive rewards and the massive payouts and all the unclaimed coins times the adoption multiplier get paid out. That stuff's worth about 50 to 100 times as much as the inflation is. So in the first year, we're really deciding who is going to get the lion's share of the currency. And people bid basically with longer stakes to get extra shares to receive a larger chunk of that giant payout at the end. And that's fair. If you believe more in the currency, you should get rewarded more than another guy. Right? If you're willing to delay gratification and hold, you should be rewarded more, just like you are investing periods in a startup or in CDs or bonds and treasuries in the real world. The longer you lock, the better you get paid. We're just emulating what already works in the real world in the blockchain. Now, what's the security model? Now, you have private keys that you generated in your Trezor or your Ledger, or if you just use MetaMask in the random number generator in MetaMask in your browser. And those private keys and the seed words that generated them have access to your funds. So as soon as you've claimed and you've got your auto stake, and if you want to claim that extra 10%, which I think you should, do so. And now you can't send those coins anymore. They're locked. And you've got the private keys, and you can delete all those private keys off of all your devices. You can delete them off your computer, and then your only place in the world where you've got your keys to access your money is your seed words that you've got written or printed on steel or sharded with Shamir secrets, or like whatever you want to do with your private keys. You handle that how you want. And now that's it. So, okay, your stake's over. What do you want to do? You want to end your stake. Okay, you load your private keys up however you want, or you move your Trezor over to your computer, and you click end stake. And you pay your penny or two of Ethereum fees, or maybe it's 10 cents at that time. Maybe it's $1. Maybe you mine your own block and it's nothing for you, right? It just costs you electricity. It's up to you. And that's the security model, right? And other than that, it's just an ERC20. So if your coins aren't staked, you can just send them around like any other ERC20. And the MetaMask supports Trezor and Ledger. Electrum supports Trezor and Ledger and Cold Wallet. It's secure as fuck. Like it's really good. It only takes a minute to do all this. All this stuff I explained to you, it takes 1 minute. I got a YouTube video on youtube.com/hexcrypto. 1 minute and 24 seconds is all it takes for me to slowly describe to you how to import your keys, which you don't even have to do. But if you have a crappy wallet, like many people have, then you might need to import your keys to something that can sign. Import, claim, stake, minute and 24 seconds, talking slowly, right-click copy, right-click paste.
Well, look, I ultimately I think it just becomes, I don't.
Do you like Monero?
Too many of the coins.
Do you like
Reason
Monero?
Being, no, not really. I don't
Why
think
don't
it's
you
a
like Monero?
scalable thing. I think I'm more of a Bitcoin only guy myself.
Why don't you like
I
Monero? I mean, it's
don't
anonymous.
explore them.
Isn't that good?
Sort of. I don't think it's really got the. Look, I think it's more like other people who want to try with it, fine, do it. I don't advocate it. I basically stay Bitcoin only.
You know Nick
I think
Szabo likes
it's-
Monero, right?
I mentioned it. That doesn't mean he likes it.
He
right?
mentioned
I think-
it very much that he likes it. It wasn't a soft liking. It was a very hard liking. I could look it up if we want to quote him
Well,
specifically.
that's fine. I think ultimately it'll come back to which one is most liquid, right? Of the cryptocurrencies. I think
Okay.
people who want to play, it's play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Right?
Have you heard
I
of
think
BNB?
People want to play. Sorry.
Have you heard of BNB? It was an ERC20 on Ethereum for a while. BNB.
No, I didn't.
Binance.
No.
Have you heard of Binance?
Oh yeah, BNB, the Binance
Yeah.
coin.
Yeah. How much do you
Yeah.
think? How much do you think BNB is up over Bitcoin over the last 840 days that it's existed?
No, I don't check that. But I
Okay.
think again, even if you wanted to do a proper comparison there, you would have to actually compare it against like the risk that you gambled on some other shitcoin and lost money on that, right? I think it just becomes this whole game of where people think that they can like beat Bitcoin in the long run, and I just don't think it'll
So,
happen.
so I'm trying.
People can try.
I'm pointing out to you
But go on.
that there are other people that are making more money than you in crypto, and I'm trying to help you understand how the market works, because I come from a place of knowledge. I am a trader, and I watch these charts, and I designed my own cryptocurrency, and in order to do that well, I needed to understand everything in the market. So I come from a position of knowledge. You're coming from a position of ignorance because you want to be ignorant about these things. And so you're going to get a lot more out of this conversation, this part of the conversation, than I am, because I have something to give you here. And I want to share it with you because it's important that you know about the market that you're in and about the competitors that you have that are fighting for investors' money that you would like to see buy Bitcoin instead of other things. It's very important that you understand the other sales pitches that they're receiving, the other things that they're buying, and the other things that might have good ideas that you might be able to roll into Bitcoin. You might be able to adopt other ideas from other successful things cryptocurrencies have done and adopt them into Bitcoin. You can only do that from a position of knowledge. So right now, BNB is at 23,315% over Bitcoin on the BTC pair in 870 days. And this is after it took a pretty good dump. If I measure, so this is 870 days. If I measure it from its actual peak, it's up 48,000%. A shitcoin, as you would describe it. So the founders of this shitcoin have more Bitcoin than you'll ever have in your entire life, and probably all the people you've met in Bitcoin as well, because they've got billions of dollars of Bitcoin. Like, they got hacked for $50 million of Bitcoin, and it wasn't even any sweat off their balls. They didn't even really mind, right? The Plus token Ponzi schemers also own more Bitcoin than you will ever own. They own 1% of the coins. At some point, you have to realize that what people are buying and being advertised to and putting all of their economic energy in is not what you have chosen. And you can help influence them and influence them into buying better things. I would much prefer people buy Bitcoin than Ponzi schemes. I would much prefer people buy Bitcoin than shitty ICOs for stupid businesses that should never work, right? But every once in a while, something does work and something is better. And this BNB product was an ICO. It had a token launch. It had a token sale. It was an ICO. And now it's up at its peak 48,000% over Bitcoin. And now, you know, what, like 24,000%. That's a lot of percent, bro. You got to get your head out of the sand, man. I mean, you're a smart guy.
Here's an alternative perspective. Let me that then. So my view is more like there is a complete fire hose of information in this quote-unquote crypto world.
True.
It's not easy to necessarily follow these different code projects.
Yep.
And fundamentally, you have to take that view of default scam, right? If
you
see something and you have to basically have to view it from that perspective.
Agree, 100%.
Now, it's true that, okay, some scammer out there made more Bitcoin than a person out there will, because, okay, fine, they made their own shitcoin. Of course they got rich, right? I'm not saying this is the way that you will maximize your BTC. I'm saying what is the most likely to become the money, and what is the most likely to actually be a real tool that people can use to actually liberate themselves from central banking and legal tender laws and so on, all that stuff we mentioned at the start, right? That is fundamentally how I'm viewing this. I'm not necessarily saying, oh yeah, do this thing and you'll make the most money out of it, because it's more about creating a system that gives people more freedom. And another point I would like to add here is also that fundamentally, we have to view it like an overall ecosystem, right? I don't see a lot of, like, I haven't looked into Hex a huge amount, I'll be honest, right? But
it's okay. I don't blame you for that. There is a million coins going on all the time. That's totally understandable.
So one point I would add to that is that we have to look at where is a lot of the developer resources and time going? Where is a lot of the mind share going?
I agree.
And what I can see a lot of work happening into Bitcoin right now. Yes, you pointed out, and correctly, yes, it takes elite level development to get pull requests into Bitcoin. Yep. It takes a lot of work, but it's not just at the direct protocol layer. There are people developing things like wallets and other software and how to run your full node
I used to
software.
Yeah, when I first got
together. Who is going to do that for Hex when they could do that on Bitcoin? And they could help build the overall system around Bitcoin. Again, the most liquid cryptocurrency. Just spoken about before, that's the most important factor.
Yes, I agree. Bitcoin is extremely liquid, the most liquid cryptocurrency by far. Agree. And it also has the most press about it. And it also has, I love when Coin Center goes and talks in front of Congress. I think that's amazing. I was just speaking to someone that works at one of the primary blockchain development companies in the world, of which there's two. And he's a very smart guy, and I like him very much. And I think he's done great for digital scarcity. And I want Bitcoin to do very well. I want Bitcoin to do amazing things. And I tried very hard to do my best to onboard as many users to Bitcoin as I possibly could. And I found that there are just things that I can't fix in that ecosystem, but I can fix them in other ecosystems. So let's talk about developers, right? What I've noticed is that you mention points which, when you examine them, hurt your case, but you don't realize that they hurt your case. So for instance, your statement is that Bitcoin is the best because it has the most developers and they're building all kinds of cool stuff. So let's take a look at that idea. Let's examine that, okay? Just this one little idea. Do you know how many developers were at the last DevCon 5 for Ethereum?
Quality of there would have been plenty, but were they, I would say one Greg Maxwell or one Peter Voller is equivalent to more than 100 of those developers.
Okay, so I'll continue. More work is being done in ZK Snarks by Dan Robertson and people on the Ethereum team, not that he is, but more people are doing more cool stuff with a more aggressive roadmap and more funding, and there's more of them, and there's more papers published, and there's more things being used in the wild in the Ethereum ecosystem than in Bitcoin by a very large degree. It's not even close to contestable. Like there's not even a comparison. Now I would have agreed with you that maybe a year or two ago, before all the ZK snark stuff and all this super advanced math shit that they're doing now that I barely understand, like optimistic rollups with fraud proofs, and like they're doing shit that is just out of my comprehension. It would take me a week to get caught up at like a hobbyist level, which is more than enough for most people in cryptography. You know, that is the case now. Ethereum has a stronger roadmap with more people working on it, with code in the wild, like running, right? It's not even a comparison, man. You should look at what the the distributed finance is going on in that system. It's crazy. Like when I first heard about DAI, I thought that's stupid. It's never going to work. It's working great, right? I was wrong. It's working great. And that is a very cool product that is very useful to people that you will never have on Bitcoin. You're not going to have any type of stable coin on Bitcoin anytime soon, for the reason you don't even have Tether on Bitcoin anymore. It left that ecosystem too, right? So I hope Bitcoin does amazing things. I have a huge bag of it. I like the developers. I like the ecosystem. I still say wonderful things about it on stage, but I can't say that it's got better or smarter developers than Ethereum has now. And I can't say the roadmap's as good. I can't say the likelihood that if they even had a good roadmap that they'd be able to actually fork it in is as likely either. You know, the Ethereum people are a little more friendly. You know, I went into the Ethereum Reddit, and I said, hey guys, I want to make a list of everything Ethereum does better than Bitcoin. And the thread fucking died. They didn't even want to do it. They didn't want to be tribal. They didn't want to say bad things about Bitcoin in the fucking Ethereum Reddit. Like, if I had made that same thread in the Bitcoin Reddit, like, hey guys, I want to talk about how shitty Ethereum is. Like, what does Bitcoin do better than it? It would have been like a fucking front page ad and just like had everyone onboarding. And so it was so weird to me that those people operate so differently. Like, I'm not, so my point is that like when they come up with a way to improve the ecosystem, it is extremely more likely that it'll be implemented. They're even very likely to remove ASIC mining. Do you know how much better that makes things to get rid of fucking ASICs? It makes things vastly better and vastly more distributed, and you can start onboarding users again from the. Say again. Did you say you don't agree with that?
I mean, I think what we
you do agree or don't agree?
Certainly, and we actually do want of mining, and what we ultimately want, theoretically speaking, is a digitalization of mining across the different axes. So one will be across geography of mining, like where is it done? Yep. One will be around pools, right, which, you know, and there are proposals coming such as Sky V2, and also around the manufacture of mining, right? And I think ultimately what we want is commoditized ASICs.
Yep. And that would be fine.
Decentralization across those three axes. What I would suggest.
So I agree with all of that, and so I love that we found agreement there, because that is the security model. You know, the security model is difference of hash rate and honesty of the participants and no collusion and hard to influence that. And if they do get bad and evil, then you can route around them. Like if a pool gets bad, people can pull their hash rate and go elsewhere. I support that, right? I think that you're not ever going to have a commoditization of ASICs. Because of their energy intensity, the advantages to being on a smaller node means that if you're able to mine profitably and more efficiently, then you could be the only person able to do that because you're on a smaller node process. And because there's only 2 or 3 fabs in the world that can operate at the smaller node sizes, they're always going to be competing to get Bitcoin ASIC chips mined out of those TSMC factories and Samsung factories instead of GPUs for phones. And instead of CPUs for computers. And because of that competition, I think you're always going to find that Bitcoin chips are not commoditized, because it's been around for 10 years and we've had less, there's been absolutely no progress on that front whatsoever. Companies have come and gone, like Jet Hash or whatever just went out of business. The guy, Timo Hanke, that was the guy that wrote ASIC Boost, got the patent on it. His ASIC company went out of business. You know, numerous ASIC manufacturers have gone out of business. Butterfly Labs went out of business, etc. So we haven't seen any type of progress in that area, and I truly don't believe we ever will unless it gets easier to build chip fabs, and in fact, it's getting far harder. And it's getting far more expensive to tape out a new chip. So I don't think we're ever going to see commoditization of ASICs, which means the best thing we can do is fight them, which is something Monero does. Monero kills ASICs rather often with hard forks by design. And Ethereum's trying to kill ASICs now, and I think it would be great if Bitcoin did the same thing.
I think that can hurt as well, because
It's
again,
possible,
hard forking
sure.
that often. So again, there's a different, obviously a different philosophy of thought. Like the Bitcoiner way is more like, let's try to do what we can to not hard fork and try to maintain the compatibility. Whereas I see, some of these other coins are trying that idea, but I
It's a
think
trade-off,
the more
but I mean,
prudent
look,
approach is
with what Bitmain did to Bitcoin, stabbing it in the back that hard, I would very strongly and firmly lean towards getting rid of the ASIC guys, if at all possible. And you'll notice they don't talk to you on Twitter because they're in China. And in China, you can't access Twitter. That's not that good for social consensus. It's also not that good to have all your mining hash rate in China, because if the Chinese government says jump, everyone is going to say how high. And that is not good.
over time. I think we can make an argument though that it is decentralizing. So Blockstream Mining, they set up a facility in Canada. They're
Oh,
renting
God.
it out space if people want to set up there.
Why
And then
would
there's
you
that
mention
new
that?
one. I think it's called Layer One in
Oh, no.
Texas, where they are. I think they've raised 50 million on a $200 million total valuation. So again, that's another example where I think it's a time factor. Over time, it will decentralize further.
So you keep doing this thing where you mention a point that like kills your argument. Blockstream is the second most productive employer of code writers for Bitcoin Core. I know people that work there. I like what they do, but I don't like them offering cloud mining, and I don't like them offering a sidechain for money, and I don't particularly like them defending people that use their sidechains because they make money on it. So when I come out and say that centralization is bad and that counterparties are bad and that you shouldn't put a middleman with a bank account in between you and the bank, and it's worse, the Blockstream guys go on the other side of that and support that stuff because they license Liquid. That bothers me. It also bothers me that the developers are now in the business of selling you hash rate. That is centralization, and it is bad, and it introduces misincentives and malincentives, and we shouldn't tempt the dragon with that. And furthermore, it's just goddamn bad fucking marketing. They could have just opened that shit under another brand with another set of directors and not had to have this stupid, easily low-hanging fruit of attack with, hey, the guys that write your code also sell you the mining and also support other things which compete with you. So when people use a Liquid sidechain to transact value, they don't have to buy and sell Bitcoin. It reduces Bitcoin's store value use case, right? So that shit's all bad. That line of thought that you mentioned about what's going on with Blockstream, that's worse, not better.
I think there's a few things there. So, first of all, in terms of code contributions, we are now seeing Square Crypto. There's MIT DCI. There's Chaincode
Great.
Labs.
Chaincode's the best.
if you look
Chaincode's
at
number one.
in terms of
Blockstream's
code
number two.
contribution,
Chaincode's number one.
lot of
Blockstream's
them-
number two.
Right. Not 100% sure on that. It actually might be. That actually might be a bit lower, Blockstream,
Okay.
in terms of Bitcoin Core. That is.
Okay.
Right? And they might
I mean,
be
maybe
slightly
look. I
lower
haven't
now.
looked in 6 or 8 months. Like, it may have changed in 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, because there are actually a bunch of independent developers. So if you look at
Mhm.
on Twitter, there's a guy, his name's John Attack. I recently interviewed him on the podcast, and he
Mhm.
recently tweeted actually showing out like commits. So again,
Excellent.
commits are not indicative of everything, right? But anyway,
know.
that's one point, like the
Mhm.
code part.
I'm
Now,
happy to
part
see
around-
more decentralization development. I think it's great.
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
And I think that's we're seeing more and more coming there. So with the Liquid, now I think that is one point where. So you mentioned earlier around how you think that stops Bitcoin's store of value-ness, so to speak.
Mhm.
Again, I would disagree with that. I think what we're actually seeing is more like a new settlement layer coming, right? We're seeing a new market structure rather than the like kind of the traditional model of like custodian and like clearinghouse and exchange, that sort of model. We might see a newer model, and this might be more like a settlement layer across the different exchanges
I
and
thought
trading
Bitcoin was a settlement
desks.
layer. I thought Bitcoin was the
Well,
settlement
that too.
layer.
I think
So
that
you
too.
can't
I
have it
think that
both
too. But I
ways.
think it's more like,
You can't have
well,
it both ways.
I think it's more like people will use uh, like Liquid for other tokens, right? So,
Okay.
and
Look,
Bitcoin,
I'm
Bitcoin will
okay
be
with
the base
security
layer.
trade-offs. I'm okay with time memory trade-offs. I'm okay with throughput, decentralization, censorship resistant trade-offs. I'm okay with a world where people choose what type of trade-offs they want to make, and as long as they're honestly disclosed, they can use them. Like, I support that, right? But I want to be clear about the trade-offs that you're making. When you use the Liquid product, they do have a hardware security module, and it is proprietary software, and I don't think it's open source. So if you like a closed sourced, siloed, faster, but if the devs want to fuck you, they can kind of thing, you have that. Cool. But how does that pump my Bitcoin bag, bro? Because that's what I care about. I care
So,
about the Bitcoin price.
all right, well, even there, it helps with like arbitrage, right? So if a trader wanted to
Yeah.
quickly,
Yep.
um,
Yes.
move money around
Yep.
exchanges, or it also helps to some extent a little bit around the regulatory. So it's like you could argue it's a bit like a regulatory arbitrage in
Mm-hmm.
some ways. So someone could set up a liquid CAD, for example, liquid Canadian
Mm-hmm.
dollar,
Yep.
and they could then use that liquid Canadian dollar on the liquid network, and then other exchanges can simply support liquid rather than having a Canadian bank account, for example,
Sure.
right? And then
Right.
they're kind of, to some extent
Mm-hmm.
getting around, Canadian AML
Right.
regulation laws a little bit,
Okay.
right? Now,
Yep.
I think that's one thing we'll see with liquid, and like to the point you were saying earlier around making trade-offs and choosing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now, obviously, not your keys, not your coins with Bitcoin. That's that's as Andreas popularized. That's the most important thing. So people who really want to hold their Bitcoins, they should obviously be doing, multi-signature, air gapping, all that sort of stuff. But
I'm
for those
not.
people
I
who
wouldn't.
want
I
to
wouldn't
have some
suggest the multi-sig actually, because most people will just store their multi-sig in the same place, and then it's just more expensive transaction. Like, you can't just suggest. There have been a lot of companies that have lost money that used multi-sig. So like, just, anyway, I won't go into key security right now. But
right, yeah,
so
right. Anyway, the point being that if you are that sort of person, if you're like an exchange, you're trusting that 2/3 of the liquid functionaries will not screw you over, right? But that's an opt-in model. You don't have to use it.
okay, so just to, and I'm trying to. I think that you are behaving in ways that you're unaware of with internal discongruence that you just haven't noticed before. So I try and point them out when I find them, and then maybe 6 months from now you'll have like a snap, and then things will be congruent again, perhaps. If you can support a wrapped fiat currency on a if 1/3 wants to fuck you they can network,
It's
which it
2/3 rather.
appears, okay, 2/3. If you can support a wrapped fiat currency on a 2/3 can fuck you network, then surely you should be able to support that on other networks too, like EOS. EOS used to be able to just seize your coins whenever they wanted, but apparently they got rid of the eCAF or whatever that could do that. And so apparently now it's censorship resistant and fast and all that crap. Okay, well then if they have wrapped fiat there, it should work. We have wrapped Bitcoin inside Ethereum with BitGo as a counterparty. And then you have to choose whether you like BitGo as your counterparty or whether you want the Liquid developers as your counterparty, right? Like, if you're okay with non-maximalism because it was built by some guys that also just happened to work on Bitcoin, then you really should be okay with other things that fulfill the same stuff with just different developers, right? Like,
The difference here for me, and why I don't think that is being incongruent, is again comes back to what I was explaining earlier around monetary maximalism versus platform maximalism, right? I
mhm.
think of Bitcoin and Satoshis rather as there's that tendency, as we were saying, the one by one commodities will be rejected until we're left with the most saleable one, right? So from a
but
monetary
the market
maximalist
has
point
gone
of
the
view,
other direction. So you say that, but then when you look at how many coins exist, it's always more, never less.
well, and it's interesting. It's funny you say this because Andreas made a similar kind of argument as well when I was interviewing him, but I think that is like a short-term thing, right? Longer term,
No, it's not. It's not. Why would you think that it would stop? But
oh,
also
I
this
don't
isn't
think it'll
this
stop. What I
this
mean
isn't
is
just happening to
their
Bitcoin. It's happening to
relevance will
Ethereum
fade.
too.
Of course people would try it. Hey, a sucker is born every minute, as
No, but
P.T. Barnum says, right?
we already had the bear market. We already had the negative 95% in the alts, man. Like that shit already happened. And there's still new ones, and they're still doing new stuff. And Ethereum's market cap is not appreciating as quickly as the ERC20s on Ethereum. Look at how many multi-billion-dollar tokens Ethereum has launched. BNB, that's up hundreds of times over Bitcoin, was launched on Ethereum. TRX, multi-billion-dollar coin, or 1.5 billion, something like that, launched on ERC20. USDT, more transactions than any other crypto, multi-billion-dollar coin, launched on ERC20, or launched on Omni, but it does the majority of the transactions now on ERC20. You know, how many different top 10 cryptos do you need to see launch as ERC20s, and they all plug in with each other? It's like Legos for finance, right? So you like interoperability, you like no order books, you like no counterparty risk. All of this distributed finance stuff plugs right in with each other. That's the future, man. This silo of like, yo, I just like Bitcoin and I just like this one product which almost no one uses, maybe a couple exchanges and maybe a couple big traders with arbitrage, maybe they use it. That's like, you're locked into that, when the whole rest of the world, like you're locked into AOL and the whole rest of the world's working on the real financial internet, basically. But you don't see that yet.
So I would say it's more like we have to get the money right first. And I think a lot of these other projects fundamentally are, well, they're probably just too early, right? And they need to be, we have to kind of get the money changed right and get that
XRP
going
has a lower
first.
inflation rate than Bitcoin. XLM has a lower
Well,
inflation rate than Bitcoin. As a matter of fact, XLM
again,
just
these,
cut its fucking supply. It's like market supply almost in half. So like if you're
right. Well,
so if you like if you say you got to get the money right, I can point to you other coins that are kind of getting the money right better from the inflation
but are they
perspective.
getting the money right first? Do they have the same buy support? No,
Well,
they
here's
don't. So
well
I don't
here's what I know.
think they're getting the right
XLM used to not be in the top 10 and now they are. And they just gave me another free bunch of that shit today for being a Keybase user. So I'm getting free fucking money for XLM that is free, and Bitcoin didn't give me any free money today.
Come on, man, like that's like $20 or whatever it is. Like, is that gonna really?
Yeah, like
move
every
the
couple
needle?
months they give me like
Move the dial?
$50 for nothing. I never fucking do anything. I just
Right.
nothing.
So the whole world is gonna adopt XLM because they got $50 on Keybase. Is that really what you think?
I'm telling you that if you held Bitcoin, I'm telling you the likelihood that you 10x your net worth in Bitcoin is a shitload lower than you 10x your net worth in some of those other coins on their way up to the top 10 or top 20. That's just the math of it. It takes more economic
play
energy.
stupid games, win stupid prizes. Though I think
Well,
that you're putting
how
people
much?
people who try that, they're putting themselves at risk of
Sure,
basically just losing a lot of
but
money.
it's fucking free. It's free, man. You ain't risking shit, bro. It's free. It's fucking free.
Okay, so even that's a free ride though, you might actually, now I didn't claim my XLM, I didn't bother, but you could theoretically, if you thought, well, Bitcoin is more marketable and long term better, you might trade that in for Bitcoin and then hold Bitcoin instead.
Sure, go ahead, but at least take the free fucking money. I mean,
Eh,
dude, XRP, XLM, BCH, BSV, 4 top 10 cryptos, all fucking free. And when I mine Bitcoin, free. How much? Like, free is fucking good. Like, it's all up in the top 10, bro. You should like that shit. You should. You would have
it
like.
just ends up being a distraction though. But hey, look, ultimately, if you wanna, you can do that. I would not. For me, I focus more on what I think is going to make a meaningful difference in the world.
Okay.
And I think
Do you think
meaningfully.
Libra? Do you think Libra would onboard more users than Bitcoin?
So this is a like, I mean, depends who you ask, right? This is one of those questions where, some people say, oh yeah, look, all these people might use it, and then it'll be an onboarding into Bitcoin, and it'll be better, and and then the other angle might be, hey, they might not even launch, right? They may never even get the permission and the regulatory rights to actually launch. So why even bother with all this?
Well, here's
Right.
the funny thing is that like they don't need permission. They're just being nice about it. They don't need permission at all. Building a
Well,
cryptocurrency is permissionless.
I mean, the government could try and shut Facebook down or something like that, right? I
Why
mean,
would
and
the
now,
government ass fuck Facebook but not Bitcoin? Like, come on. Those guys have lobbyists. A lot of them. The government would ass fuck Bitcoin long before they would ass fuck Facebook because all of those little politician guys really like their Facebook page. So like I got to tell you, like if Facebook started charging $20 a week to use it, every politician would bust their credit cards out and pay for that Facebook page immediately. Yeah.
Well, they want
So
the reach, or even more cynically, Facebook might have blackmail material on the politicians. So
wow,
who knows, right? I don't. Yeah.
So I'm just saying,
who
look,
knows, right?
I want to make an impact in the world. I want to make the world a better place. And I think peer-to-peer, trustless, no order book, no bullshit scam wicks, no margin trading and getting fucking liquidated, no fees. That's amazing. And I built something that does all of that shit, and I'm giving it to you for free. With a Bitcoin signature, you can do offline, anonymous as fuck. As a matter of fact, you might not have possession of your keys right now. And I might be convincing you, I'm pretty sure you do, but a lot of Bitcoin guys don't. And me offering them something for free, if they take possession of their own finances and take responsibility for them, reduces the number of people that lose money to getting hacked in exchange. Reduces the number of people that realize, oh shit, my backup's not actually here. So I better like re-save my keys, right? I'm doing a lot to actually improve Bitcoin security by getting people to make sure their keys are in their own possession, just like Trace Myers is trying to do with proof of keys. Except Trace Myers is not paying you, but Hex is paying you to make sure you have your own keys. That's better, not worse. You know, I see one of these maxi pads in the channel here talking about you're going to dox yourself to Richard Hart. Man, your doxing information isn't worth anything to me. I can't sell it. It has no economic value. It's a fucking liability. I don't want it, right? I don't want to have GDPR responsibilities for you. I don't want your data. I don't want to know where you're from. I don't want to be asked questions about you. I don't give a shit. I want to give you free stuff. And actually, when I say I'm going to give it to you, really, you're minting your own coins, running software that you chose, and doing your own transactions. So I'm not really giving you anything. You're running your own software, making your own coins in a peer-to-peer network, and I'd like to see you do that. Yeah, I hope that something that I told you was of value to you. I think I expressed a lot of things that you may not have known that may help you pump your bags in Bitcoin harder. You know, I think there's a lot of people out there doing good stuff.
I think of it more like from a total addressable market point of view. We're talking about Bitcoin is going after global money. Like, that's what this thing is. In my view, that's what I think this thing is going to.
Cool.
Be. Obviously, I could be wrong, right? But I think that's essentially it's. As I agree with Trace Mayer on this point, I think the world is deciding, is it going to be Bitcoin or USD or gold, right? It's going to be one of those three, like in all likelihood. Now, I believe it'll be most likely Bitcoin, but
what China? So like China's not even in the fucking game. Like fuck China. Like, what are you talking about? Come on, man.
No, I don't.
A couple billion people there, mate. They just all into blockchain. They just all into it. They're teaching it in school to the kids now.
I think so. I think USD is still the world's reserve currency. An inertia around that. So from a fiat point of view, it's USD, but from a crypto point of view, it's Bitcoin. That's how I'm doing it. Yeah. I think people who want to play other games, you know, it's ultimately, as I said, and as SafeStream says, or as other people say, it's play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
I think I can onboard millions of users to Hex, is what I think I can do. Without a single dollar of marketing, we've got 22,000 signups on the email list. Had a dev lose 4,000 of them. He's no longer with us. Got 18,500 today, I think, left. Maybe some people got my notice a couple of days ago that they should, like, you know, make sure their email address is in there. And we've got 4,500 people in the chat room, real humans. Bot kicks out all the other bots, right? Starts everyone muted, like bans people on the CAS list and all these things. I've got more memes, more new users, and more traction in the bubble that I live in, which is mostly the Bitcoin bubble, to tell the truth, than Bitcoin does. And I was just at a talk in Malta. I was just in a talk in Singapore, and I saw what everyone was promoting and everyone was talking about, and Bitcoin was about 10% of it. So if like, you're dreaming big dreams, you're saying big words, you do have the liquidity now, but you do not have the most developers. You do not have the smartest developers. Maybe they're tied with ETH because of the ZK Snarks guys. Look it up. You do not onboard the most new users. Ponzi schemes are winning that game. As far as press and the media goes, Libra took all that for a good while, and now China's taking all that. And what they're advertising is blockchain, not Bitcoin, unfortunately. And if they're not doing that now, they will do it because they oscillate between ban, unban, just to fucking rape all the traders for some reason. It's hilarious. I actually made a GIF of it on a roller coaster. Ban, unban. It's crazy how they do it. And they space it out over time. They won't just get it all over with. They make sure that it comes out, over like you did when the Panama Papers came out, or when the Snowden revelations came out. If you want to have maximum media impact, you space it over time. Same reason I don't release all my videos the same day. Well, they do that in China too with their good news, bad news blockchain cycle. It's infuriating, unless you're ahead of the game on it. So I think that a lot of other currencies are doing things amazingly well. Referral program is super powerful. It's working for all the Ponzi's. It's working for Amazon. It's working for Tesla, and Bitcoin doesn't have one, right? Developer meetups where on DevCon 4 there was 2,500 developers there. How many developers can get at a Bitcoin developer meetup? 3, 8, 14?
Bitcoin developer meetup. Well, it depends
Yeah.
where. Like if you're talking about BitDevs in New York or San
Mhm.
Francisco, you will get a solid turnout there. And
Well, how
there are
many?
now other similar
30?
meetups starting around
It
the
can't
world.
be more than
The
30.
other point I would also want to point out as well is, again, long-term thinking here. Because,
Mhm.
again, who's going to trust in Hexcoin for the long term when there's already Bitcoin, which has this already existing architecture and structure around it? And the other point, you like, because I think you were trying to say this idea of like, oh, free transactions, blah, blah, blah. But
Mhm.
who's to say that would stay that way, right? Like,
Oh, it could
as
get very
any chain
expensive.
grows, it
Sure.
floats, right?
Yeah,
And
it
the
could get very
transaction
expensive, and then I'd have to stop saying that. Yep. But I think if transactions on Hex got expensive, I think Bitcoins would be vastly higher. I think whatever ecosystem causes Hex to have expensive transactions will also cause Bitcoin transactions to be even more expensive, which makes sense because you're trying to secure more value with a higher market cap. So why wouldn't the transactions be more expensive on that network?
I
right?
agree that transaction fees will rise on Bitcoin, and I
Mhm.
think that will just be viewed as part of the security model.
So did we
So
did we
most
make
Bitcoiners are comfortable with that. They've accepted that longer term transaction fees on chain will rise.
if you want more security, they have to. Like
Yeah, essentially.
like the security is related to how much the miners make. So I believe it's a little misleading because in Bitcoin we have had critical failures and they have not been hash rate failures. We've never had a hash rate failure in Bitcoin. We've had
Right.
software
Yes, so
failures.
arguably, actually, Bitcoin has, maybe you could argue that actually it's got too much security right now.
Yeah, and we
right?
need to
Than
spend
what
more
it
on devs and
theoretically
less on
needs.
fucking hash rate. But we can't change the game because it's set in stone or close enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I just think of it like, well, hey, it's what works now, and over time it will rise over time because my view is fundamentally bullish on Bitcoin, and I think fundamentally you are also bullish on Bitcoin.
I am
as
also
well.
bullish on Bitcoin, and I think the price is going to go
So-
up, and the adoption is going to go up. And look, if the price is this good when we have such little adoption, imagine if we got more adoption, how high the price would go. Like I am bullish on Bitcoin. I just think that I can get people higher ROI with better security in something I can give them for free, and pay the evil miners less, and get rid of the whales and penalize them 75%, and get rid of there's so many good things I can do and incentives I could structure by designing a smart contract that I can't do in Bitcoin.
I think one way, maybe one other fundamental difference in our views here is also that idea of if you might be familiar with Friedrich Hayek, right? So
A little bit.
there's one passage I think he wrote. I can't remember the exact book, but he wrote about something like basically think a product of human action, but not of human design, right? So fundamentally, you're coming at it from this frame of, oh, I can design and I can architect and I can do these little things that will make it all better. And
Yep.
I'll note also that you put in a few little populist rhetoric things in there as well, like,
Sure.
oh, screw the whales, right? Like, so you
Yeah.
kind of.
But then I
tap
actually
into
screw
that,
them too.
right?
Yeah,
Right?
I use the
Well-
rhetoric, and then I actually screw them as well.
Right.
So
Well,
I think my
view-
rhetoric is good. I do frame things well, and I think everyone should try to do that.
Right. I mean, look, that's a fundamentally, political act and so on, right? But anyway, the framing aside, the point I'm making is that fundamentally, Bitcoin is a product of human action, and it's not so consciously designed in the way that you're kind of approaching Hex. That's I think one of the fundamental differences in our view between yours and mine that I think it has to be viewed from that kind of zoomed out long-term perspective, right? And so when people like Andreas say, oh, look at all these new shitcoins that are coming out, you must be wrong about this idea of maximalism because, oh, look at all the shitcoins coming. Well, from my point of view, of course there's going to be a ton of shitcoins coming out. I just think they're not going to win against Bitcoin because they don't have the same characteristics.
What do you think that guys that made 8-track tapes were saying when they had the entire market and the cassette tape came out? What do you think it was like in their boardroom meetings?
I
Yeah,
think
you know, cassettes are
Bitcoin.
smaller, but I mean, we've already got the manufacturers, they already install our machines, people are used to it, right? You go
I
to the
think monetary
store, there's
network
no
effects
cassettes for
are
sale,
far
it's all eight
stronger.
tracks. But
I'd
then
say
they got,
monetary network effects are far stronger, and then also any of these projects that have come out, they might have, even if for some technical reason had something that was technically interesting, they at best were like only marginally half better in some one thing, but they weren't better overall on the whole of Bitcoin. And I would say the same about any of these other
I,
coins.
I like Bitcoin, I own it, but I also know it went down 85 and Dogecoin went down 95. And Dogecoin ain't getting rolled back. And Dogecoin works fine, and it's just a fork of Bitcoin. So if you
But
like Bitcoin back then when it forked, then you should like it fucking now. And
well,
you know
I
what else is
think
a fork of
even
Bitcoin? Everything
Dogecoin
else.
comparison isn't really a good one because there wasn't. It's not like there was real commerce happening on Dogecoin's chain, right? It's not that like okay,
It's worth like
aside
quarter
from
of a
like
billion
little
dollars.
meme,
It's worth like a quarter of a billion
aside from
dollars,
like
bro.
little meme level commerce on it, and like people doing joke trades on it, it had nothing compared to Bitcoin. And the problems that come with some of these cryptocurrencies are problems that come with scale. So it's easy to kind of like have these little shit coins that make certain trade-offs
But
now and have more
but it's
transactions
just
now,
Bitcoin, bro.
then
You're
they
making fun
don't
of Bitcoin.
actually long-term scale.
Yeah, but you're making fun of Bitcoin now. All that
How?
coin is a fork of Bitcoin from the past. It's just Bitcoin from the past. You're making fun of Bitcoin from the past. Like
No, it's not
all
Bitcoin.
of these,
There is only
it
one
is.
Bitcoin.
It's the same fucking code. It has the
There is
same.
only one Bitcoin.
Okay. Listen,
That's
you
not
may
true.
not
There
believe
is
that
only one
other.
Bitcoin.
Listen, if I forked Bitcoin right now and no one 51% attacked it, it would work pretty fucking good because it's good software. It, you
Would
know,
it be Bitcoin though?
no, but it doesn't have to be. Why everything doesn't have to be the number one fucking thing. You know, it's okay to own a Ferrari or a Lamborghini or a fucking Tesla. It's okay to own any of those three things. It's okay to read a fiction book or a nonfiction book or porno mag. It's all fine to do all that shit. Like, it's not okay for you to think that like you have to all in Bitcoin so hard that you can't use something that gives you real privacy like Monero. It's not okay for you to think that you live in a silo where no one wants to interact with you, and if they try to, you literally screw them with opcode changes, like they screwed XRP or rather XCP Counterparty by making the opcodes, you know, smaller and harder to write and all this shit. And they had to change a million things to try and still operate on that ecosystem because you tried to kill them off because they tried to build on your ecosystem, while the whole rest of the world wants to interoperate with each other. Like there's a whole world of amazing things going on in finance right now that you're just mute to because all you see is like, oh, maybe I'll get Mimblewimble, maybe I'll get Schnorr signatures, and maybe I'll get Lightning. You got anything else on your roadmap? If you got something else on your roadmap, I want to be enlightened and I want to be excited and I want to feel good about my Bitcoin bags. So let me know what I'm getting that's not Schnorr, Mimblewimble, which just got shown today to be pretty useless, and Lightning. What do you got? Now, mind you, it's been 2 years since
Well,
you
I
got
think
SegWit.
that I think Schnorr and Lightning are really awesome today, and Schnorr. Once we get that, then theoretically we can get stuff like L2 as well, which is the new formulation of Lightning Network. On top of that, later down the track, we may eventually get signature aggregation as well, which may even make coin joining cheaper than a standard transaction, right?
I
Now
hope we
that's a
get all
way
that
off.
stuff.
We may never get it, but
I hope
the
we get
way
all
I
that
think of
stuff.
it fundamentally,
But can we admit that these are not like these are maybe 10% improvements? I mean, it's good.
so I would
Like,
say if we get L2, potentially we can get channel factories, or in the general case known as multi-party channels. That would
okay,
also dramatically help people use Lightning Network
okay,
because then we can start doing channel factories. And so that
sure.
would be a huge game changer.
All right.
But I think even if we don't get that, I think
I give it like a
Bitcoin will be fine.
30% then. I would say that like makes Bitcoin 30% better then, which is a lot. It's a lot. You know, $160 billion market cap, 150, 30% better. It's like an extra 50 billion. Yeah, I'm excited about that. I think you'll find the stuff in Ethereum is like more outrageous and more crazy. Like optimistic rollups, 100x the throughput right now on chain. ZK snarks, anonymity, getting rid of paying the miners anything at all with proof of stake. There's a lot of lottery tickets to a lot of amazing things in that ecosystem. And there's just more people working on it with better funding. You should look into it, man. it's pretty neat, and it's already launched all the other, 3 or 4 of the other top 10 cryptos. You should learn about it. Andreas did. As a matter of fact, the reason I'm on this talk with you right now? The reason I'm on this talk with you right now is because I heard your Andreas talk. And he had a very similar conversation as to the one I'm having with you as regards to how maximalism isn't really all there is and how Ethereum's pretty cool. So it's like, I heard the Andreas talk and I figured I would give you round 2 of the same thing, I guess. I don't know.
Well, maybe that's what it ended up being. But I guess, look, it's probably a good time to end it now.
Yeah.
I guess we've
Good.
spoken it out.
We covered a lot of stuff.
Obviously,
I was
we
very happy with
disagree.
it. Yeah, but it's fine.
Yeah, obviously we disagree, but I think, you've got your view, I've got mine. It was
The market.
it was a good chat.
So
and I
let
hope
me ask you
the
this.
listeners got something out of it.
Yep. Before we go, definitely we're both going to shill all our stuff so that the people that are watching can derive more value from us in the future. Let's have a little, not a bet, but like, a little prediction thing. So my coin snapshot is set in like 12 days. And then the contract launches the next day. And then the staking launches the next day. So we're going to know whether my shit sucks or not within some pretty short time frame, right? So how would you know if my shit didn't suck? Like, what metric would you use to measure it?
I think we can't really look at these things on a short time frame. I would really look at more like long term. How is it done in, say, 5 years from today? That's how I would.
So you understand that if ever anything cool actually does happen, you won't know about it until 5 years later, using that worldview.
And maybe that's a conservative but safer worldview.
Okay. All right. Because I thought it would be cool to be like, yo, if we hit this metric, then you'll think we're cool. Like if we onboard this many users, or if we do this much transaction volume, or if we lock up this amount of money, or some kind of measurable thing where you could go, oh, that worked. I thought that would be cool. But you can't think of anything.
I would want to look at it more in a long-term time frame. So, and yeah, I maybe that's closing me off. Maybe I'm closed off ideologically or whatever. But I think longer term, I think this viewpoint works better for me. But you're welcome to your views as well.
Imagine how much it cost fiat maximalists when they ignored Bitcoin the way you're ignoring everything else, and they had to wait until 5 years later to buy it 2014 at $1,300.
Yeah. So I'd suggest it's a category error. That's a category error. Like from my point of view, I think it's more like Bitcoin really was a big difference, whereas I think Hex is more just like more of a, in the grand scheme, it's more like a little kind of distraction sideshow thing.
I would agree with you. I would agree with you on that they are different categories. However, the people that bought Ethereum, which launched far after Bitcoin launched, made a 4,300x in 3.5 years, and made a better return than Bitcoin holders did.
Coulda, woulda, shoulda. I had an opportunity as well. I mean, I was around Bitcoin. I just never really paid much attention to Ethereum, and I was always kind of skeptical of it. And yeah, sure, coulda, woulda, shoulda. Maybe I would have more Bitcoin.
Don't make the same mistake again, bro. Choose winners and losers. Don't just assume you can never choose another winner. You chose one winner. It was Bitcoin. It's very likely you could choose another if you read up on stuff, right? I think you could do it. I think that there are better, worse coins, and you can learn what better ones look like and participate. It doesn't have to be a large portion of your stack. A lot of people, Trace Meyer tells people they should have, a certain percentage. I think it's a single-digit percentage. I think I've heard him say 1%, but look it up and check it. I think he says everyone should have at least 1% of their portfolio in Bitcoin, because what if it does take over, right? Well, maybe you should look at other coins like that from your Bitcoin stack. Like maybe I don't want to miss the next Ethereum. Maybe I should put 1% into things I think are okay, or so scammy that you would feel bad if they went up, and they'll go up because people are stupid.
Well, I'd say pretty soon. Like, look, here's the thing, right? For some people, they might, if you give that as a suggestion to people, then they might start going, oh, 1% into this shitcoin, oh, 1% into another shitcoin, and pretty soon it's all added up, and now
that's how Bitcoin got me.
Down.
Bitcoin gave me the freemium, and then I bought in. That's how they got me. That's how they got a lot of Ethereum guys too with the GP money. Dude, I've enjoyed this talk. Like I thought that once your internet cleaned up, we talked about only smart stuff, and I think you represented the maximalist Austrian economics, von Mises, Hayek. Like I think you represented all those guys' views very well, and I don't think anyone else could have had a better maximalist, non-maximalist conversation than we had. So it was really the best we could do, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much, Richard. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's been a pleasure, bro. If you think that any of your followers? Oh, we should show our stuff. So tell how can people find you?
Yeah, sure. So, yes, so my website is stefanlivera.com, and I've also got, for listeners who would like to learn more about how to earn their own full node and so on, ministryofnodes.com.au. So they're the two I would list for that for the listeners.
All right. I linked to his Twitter in the notes here underneath the video. I'm Richard Hart. I'll do my shilling round here. I'm Richard Hart. I've got about 100,000 followers across YouTube and Twitter. I've got a free price calls channel called Richard's Calls. It's got like 8,500 members in it. You shouldn't trade. You'll probably lose your money. But if you must, you can go to richardhart.win and margin trade away 100x. But you probably shouldn't. Two, I've got a trading channel, Strafe Charts, t.me/Strafe Charts. Once again, you probably shouldn't trade. I've got a general crypto chat. Used to be mostly Bitcoin maximalist. It's probably still mostly Bitcoin maximalist. t.me/Strape, like strawberry grape. I wrote a couple self-help books. I believe the best thing we can do in the world is work on biology and heal human beings. And it's called Scivive, like survive through science. t.me/Scivive. The books are free. You can download them. They're an outline format, so you're going to get a lot of things to do that are awesome without the narrative glue. When the narrative glue there, we'll publish them. But Hex first, Scivive next. I've got Hex.win, which if you want an extra 10% free coins, you can go to pumpamentals.com. And it's a world's first blockchain CD free for Bitcoin holders. And it's got 2 security audits, 1 mathematics audit. You can see the code on the website. Or if you want to see the super in-depth code and look at the commit history, you can go to the GitLab, and I can add you to the GitLab. Just message me, t.me/Richard Hart. No spaces, spelled like the heart in your chest. If you want to follow me on YouTube, it's youtube.com/Richard Hart. If you want to follow me on Twitter, which you should do, it is twitter.com/Richard Hart Win. If you want to donate to charity, you should donate to sens.org. They accept crypto. Turns out if you cure cancer, people only live 3 years longer on average, even though it kills 40% of people. If you cure heart disease, even though that also kills 40% of people, you only live 3 years longer. Well, why don't we work on technology that can get us 4 years? It's better than curing something that kills 40% of all people. And that's what sens.org works on, regenerative medicine. I think that's it. Free price calls, free chat, free books, free tokens, and a charity. I think that's, if you want to look at Hex shirts, they're not for sale. I haven't turned the billing on, but the site's built out. If you just want to see what kind of stuff will eventually be available when I feel like fielding all the customer service calls from where's my shirt, hexshirt.com. And that's it. Stefan, it's been a pleasure talking to you, man. I wish great things in the Bitcoin ecosystem, and I hope the price goes to the absolute moon. I've got a big bag of it. I'm not sure how big my bag will be after Hex launches, but right now I've got a big bag.
All right, well, great. Well, pleasure chatting with you, Richard, and thanks for hosting me.
Pleasure, man. Talk to you.